Guests are, however, allowed to consume water. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the UWI Regional Headquarters, where great minds come together. At this time, we would like to inform you of a few important details. Please note that there is to be no eating or drinking inside the meeting rooms. Guests are, however, allowed to consume water. You are welcome to eat, drink, or dine in our lounge areas and the dining hall. Smoking is not permitted inside the building. Please note the location of your nearest exit. In the case of an emergency, please make your way outside the building to the assembly point located on the lawns to the left of the security guardhouse. Please proceed in a calm and orderly manner using staircases to the right or left on exiting the meeting room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening and welcome again to the UWI Regional Headquarters. We wish for you an enjoyable meeting or event. Thank you.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. You may be seated. Dr. Kassan Troop, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Mr. Kerif Clark, Director Principal, Interim for the National College for Educational Leadership. Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chair for Education Transformation Oversight Committee. Mrs. Winnie Berry, Deputy Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Ms. Terry Ann Wallace, Director, Quality Assurance at the National College for Educational Leadership. Professor Andrew Spencer, President for Caribbean Maritime University. Dr. Marcia Renford, Director of the School of Education at the University of the West Indies Mona Campus. Dr. Rebecca Tortello, Education Specialist for UNICEF Jamaica. Professor Paul Miller, Founding Director of Institute for Equity. Senior officers, other officials, and officers of the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, panelists, presenters, partners, and sponsors, attendees in the audience, and of course on our virtual platforms, members of the media, a good morning to you all. Good morning. Wonderful. My name is Brittany Clark, and I am your Master of Ceremonies for today's proceedings. And I want to start off by saying Happy Leadership Day. So just tell me a Happy Leadership Day after three. 1, 2, 3. Happy Leadership Day. Wonderful. And it is my absolute pleasure to invite you all, or to welcome you all to this official event. And of course, it's under the theme, Situating Educational Leadership in National Development, going beyond the conversations rather to implementation. Now, of course, we can't get into anything formal without bringing in the blessing of the Lord. So I invite Mrs. Winnie Berry, Deputy Chief Education Officer for Core Curriculum Unit in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, Mrs. Winnie Berry, to deliver the invocation.
Please stand for prayer. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, Creator of heaven and earth, we come before you today with grateful hearts, thanking you for the gift of education and the opportunity to gather for this Leadership Day ceremony, and pray that every aspect of these proceedings will. We thank you for the visionary leader of the NSEL, with Mr. Keynote at the helm. Bless his leadership, Lord. We pray that the NSEL continues to hold its beacon high for leadership excellence. Bless every member of the team and all those affiliated with this lighthouse. We pray for the leaders of our school community, administrators, teachers, and student leaders. Grant them wisdom, discernment, and compassion as they guide and serve our students. We especially pray for our principals who play such a vital role in transforming education for national development. May they be visionary leaders, Lord, empowering teachers, inspiring students, and fostering a culture of excellence, innovation, and inclusivity. May our schools be incubators of creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving, equipping our students with the skills, knowledge, and values necessary to drive national development and indeed prosperity. We also pray for our government leaders who have the privilege and responsibility of shaping the future of our nation. May they be guided by wisdom, justice, and compassion as they seek to create a brighter future for all citizens. We thank you that they have prioritized education, recognizing its transformative power to break cycles of poverty, promote social mobility, and foster national unity. May our nation be built on the foundation of justice, equality, and compassion, where every individual has access to quality education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. We ask your blessings upon our students, our teachers, and leaders, that they may be inspired to work together to build a better future for our nation. Help us sincerely to trend for a brighter tomorrow as we create world-class leaders. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Berry. Now, as we mentioned, today is Leadership Day, and I have a quote to start off just to set the tone for what to expect for today's activities. So it says, educational leadership is the cornerstone for national development. It is through the empowerment of our educators and the cultivation of knowledge that societies transform, economies grow, and nations flourish. Can we resonate with that quote? Yes, it's a cornerstone for national development. So today's event is exceptionally important because it will define how we as leaders champion the cause and, of course, lead towards, as Mrs. Berry mentioned, trending in education. So for leadership, we know it surrounds three words: vision, innovation, action. And today we add implementation, because we have to decide how it is that we're going to take the strategies we've learned from today and implement them in our respective spaces. Now, at the helm of NSEL, we have our Director Principal Interim, Mr. Keynote Clark, and he has highlighted that we'll be taking a 360 approach to today's activities. So at this time, I'll invite him to deliver the opening remarks and tell us more about what to expect for today's proceedings. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Kassan Troop, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Dr. Adrian Stokes, our first keynote speaker, who is the chair of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee. Mrs. Winnie Berry, Deputy Chief Education Officer for the Core Curriculum and Support Services in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Director Wallace at the National College for Educational Leadership, who heads the Quality Assurance Division. Professor Andrew Spencer, President, Caribbean Maritime University. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, the University of the West Indies. Dr. Rebecca Tortello, Education Specialist, UNICEF. Professor Paul Miller, Founding Director of the Institute for Equity in the United Kingdom. Senior officers of the ministry, other officials and officers of the ministry, panelists, presenters, attendees, all good morning. This morning, I stand here as a proud individual because of what we're achieving and what we're accomplishing in the education system. The National College for Educational Leadership was established in 2011 under the Education System Transformation Program. As a leadership college, our mandate is to improve the level and quality of education in the system. Based on the findings of the 2004 Task Force Report on Education, the NSEL was established to exercise greater control over the quality and development of school leaders, to set and to maintain standards for leadership in the country, to ensure that there is a ready supply of trained leaders for the system, to design and manage a national succession planning strategy, and to ensure that school leaders and leaders for the wider education system are well equipped for the challenging and dynamic roles. Since our establishment, the National College for Educational Leadership has been instrumental in the transformation agenda of the Ministry of Education, and we have leveraged strategic partnerships to serve the needs of our pre-service and in-service educational leaders. Our core programs include the Effective Principals Training Program, the Aspiring Principals Program, which is offered in collaboration with the University of the West Indies, and the Inclusive School Leadership Training Program, which is offered in partnership with the Special Education Unit of the Ministry of Education and the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. Additionally, school and system leaders have access to pursue short courses at NSEL, including the Child Friendly Leadership course, which is offered in partnership with UNICEF Jamaica, Leadership for Safer Schools, which is offered in partnership with the European Union Spotlight Initiative, the Strategic Middle Leadership Initiative, and Leadership and School Policy. Through other modalities, we offer leadership development through webinars and our highly in-demand customized professional interventions, where we specifically tailor the interventions to meet the needs of the schools and institutions across the island. I use this opportunity as well to indicate that since our establishment, all courses and programs at NSEL, except for the Aspiring Principals program, have been free of cost to all educators. Colleagues, we're committed to the transformation agenda. So why are we here today? In 2023, there was a question that was put forward to the team at NSEL. Why is it that we do not have Leadership Day? We have days to recognize everybody, teachers, nurses, everyone, and not leaders. Leaders are individuals who serve and contribute to nation building in varying capacities. It was then that we launched Leadership Day in 2023 under the theme Fortified for Greater Impact, Imperatives for the Servant Leader. During the first staging of Leadership Day, we recognized and awarded NSEL-trained school leaders who have been exemplary in their practices. In 2024, we hosted the second staging under the theme Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation and Research Imperatives. Last year, we recognized and awarded our system leaders, particularly our regional directors and deputy chief education officers in the Department of School Services. And I'll pause to welcome and acknowledge our permanent secretary, Dr. Cassandra Troop. So today, March 2025, we are here, our first face-to-face Leadership Day engagement, and certainly we have not forgotten our roots, which is why we're streaming live, and we thank our partners from Hartrust NSTA for providing that support. Today's event is bigger and better, not just for us at NSEL, but for you, our stakeholders. This year's conference features interrogative discourses or debates, and we'll engage in that shortly. And we're partnering with the Jamaica Association for Debate and Empowerment to deliver that session. We also have exemplary keynote speakers, Dr. Adrian Stokes and Professor Andrew Spencer. We will have a provocative panel discussion, and we will have concurrent presentations in the afternoon by expert researchers, academia, leadership experts, education experts, safety and security experts, and yes, at least one presenter from the medical field. Additionally, I am pleased to share that today we will be launching 7 new products and initiatives. This is the first occasion during which we are launching this many products in one go. At NSEL, we are about action, not a bag of mouth. As we operate primarily within the government's financial year. And here are some of our accomplishments for the 24-25 financial year. 594 participants have so far been trained across all our training programs and courses. Thank you. 493 participants are currently in training across programs and courses. We have designed over 20 leadership interventions across schools in Jamaica, serving quality education circles and individual schools to meet their respective leadership needs. Additionally, 126 candidates were successfully recruited for the cohort 11 of the Aspiring Principals program, which gets underway next month for the next financial year. In addition, the National College was recertified as an ISO 9001 2015 entity, reflecting a robust quality management system. If I were to continue with other awards and acknowledgements from the NSEL, in December 2024, NSEL was awarded Top Performing Agency in the Ministry of Education. Additionally, we were awarded Most Compliant Agency in the Ministry of Education. All 14 staff members at the time were recognized for outstanding performance in the Ministry of Education. And yours truly was awarded Top Performing Officer in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Colleagues, we are serious about transformation at NSEL, and we are serious about maintaining high standards. Permit me to highlight just a few impact features from the NSEL. For the past 2 years, majority of the principals nominated for the LASCO Jamaica Teaching Council Principal of the Year are NSEL trained. In fact, the top 3 principals for 2024 are graduates of the Aspiring Principals program. Mr. Sheldon Thomas from Ferncourt High School in Region 3, Mrs. Nadine Gay Little from Beulah Primary and Infant in Region 7, and Mrs. Laverne Stewart from Anchovy High School in Region 4. All top 3 principals are NSEL trained principals. The LASCO JTC TVET Teacher of the Year has also completed leadership training with the National College. And I am proud to say that LASCO is also one of our sponsors today. Our trainees ascend to varying leadership roles, including senior teachers, vice principals, principals, education officers, regional directors, and even our very own permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education. Yes, colleagues, Dr. Kassan Troop is a product of the National College for Education and Leadership, and we are extremely proud of her. Colleagues, today is designed for you to be empowered to acquire knowledge, but importantly, to act. We must go beyond everyday conversations. We must implement. The team at NCEL, along with our partners and sponsors for today's event, we have done our part to ensure that today's event is a success. But the ball is now in your court to be engaged and inspired to put into action ideas from today's leadership conference. At the National College for Education and Leadership, we remain committed to our core values of continuous learning, collaboration, excellence, and quality service. As today unfolds, I urge you to remember that today's event is a call to action, not just for NCEL, but because we firmly believe that leadership is demonstrable. I wish for you a great conference experience, and let us all continue to transform education for national development. Thank you.
Wow, let's have another round of applause for Mr. Clark and all the achievements coming out of NCEL. Action, not a bag of mouth. And we see the action, we see the results, and they are leading by example. So thank you for the work you're doing and for this Leadership Day opportunity so that we can benefit from all that you put in place. Now, partnership is important, and collaboration is another arm of why this Leadership Day will be successful. So we'll be inviting a few of our collaborators or partners for today's event, and I'll start by firstly acknowledging Dr. Marcia Rainford. She is unavoidably absent, but we acknowledge her in her absence. And I'll invite to the platform at this time Dr. Rebecca Tortello, Education Specialist from UNICEF Jamaica. Please join me in making her welcome.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm going to say all protocol observed because I cannot do it as well as you just did it, Karif, nor as well as Madam MC has done it. So it's my pleasure to be here with you. I see a lot of friends in the audience. I'm a big fan of NCEL, and so is UNICEF. We went to NCEL. NCEL didn't come to us. Oftentimes what happens is entities come to the UN agencies, but I specifically sought NCEL out. And why did I do that? Not only because NCEL has proven, I was proven right because NCEL has become the top performing this, that, the other, that Karif just told you, but because they're really one of our best performing partners. But why did we go to NCEL? We went because we knew that research around the world has told us that if you have a strong leader at the helm of any institution, in particular our schools, then you have a leader who is concerned about their students, their children. They call them their children, their parents, their staff, all members of staff, not just the teachers, but the ancillary staff, the admin staff, and the role the school plays in the community. And I teach a course, actually with Marcio, I co-teach one section of a course which is on foundations of education and the links between school and society, and I've taught it for a very long time. I won't say how long. And it's now all online. But my section, I often had to search for examples of child-centered, child-friendly schools, things that schools are putting in place that put the student at the center, keep them there, and keep them encouraged, schools that are led by strong leaders. And we didn't have any I had to be using American examples, and they don't resonate, as you can understand. So I sought NCEL out, and I asked, would you be willing to join us and create a child-friendly schools course, which is based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And not only did they say yes, but they went above and beyond, and they created a course that has become one of the most popular courses. It brings the Convention of the Rights of the Child to life. I use it now in my teaching. And I know that we have worked together to equip thousands of school leaders, not only with the CFS course, and the champion is Camille, who is somewhere looking fabulous. There she is, standing up. She's our CFS ambassador. And also, we've named CFS ambassadors, and we need to do better at telling their stories and spreading the good news of what is happening in the system. Because every day around the island, in classrooms, from the early childhood level right on up to tertiary. We have teachers, principals, heads of departments, deans of discipline, senior teachers that are doing great work. And those stories are not being told, but they're inspirational stories, and we need to find them and share them. NCEL is making tremendous strides in shaping school leadership. Today is another example. I've learned that today is World Leadership Day, or that's a new thing for me, so I'm glad for it. We can't transform any system without strong leaders. So the work that NCEL is doing, we're very proud to be a partner. We've created other courses, the Leadership for Safer Schools program, which treats with violence mitigation, prevention, and response. We know that we want to make our schools safe for all of our children, and we are hoping to create new programs with NCEL as we move forward. We know that working with NCEL, we can have a hand in helping to shape visionary leaders who are adaptable, forward-thinking, and ready to tackle the challenges of modern education, because times are changing very quickly. AI and all kinds of new developments are shifting the way we think about teaching and learning. And the good thing about the NCEL is that it's a college that fosters ongoing learning, and the beauty about education is that it's a profession that allows us all to keep learning. So I'm going to leave you. We learn every day in our classrooms. Those of us who are educators embrace professions where we have the opportunity to keep learning. So even at UNICEF, I'm taking a course now on middle management, being a positive manager. That's not the right title, but that's the gist of it. And the main idea is like managing with a purpose or something. But one of the main takeaways is an acronym called IDA, which I'm going to leave you with this morning, which is A for attention, I for interest, D for desire, and A for action. And NCEL's courses do those four things. They grab the attention of the participants, they sustain the interest of the participants, they fuel a spark of desire or passion among the participants, and they send them out to act. And so that's what we need to transform the system, and I want to congratulate NCEL, all its partners, all its colleagues who are continuing to make strides in our system and making all of our schools better, more safe spaces for every child in this nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tortella, and congratulations on being a student, a lifelong learner. Yes, we appreciate that you continue to take action and develop yourself, and that should be some motivation for everyone. You know, take up a short course, learn something online, find a hobby. It's always good to continue to learn and develop as you go along. So thank you for the partnership through UNICEF as well. I'll invite now Professor Paul Miller, Founding Director for Institute for Equity of the UK, to deliver greetings on behalf of his organization. And I direct your attention to the screen for a video.
My friends, on behalf of the Institute for Educational and Social Equity, I want to congratulate Mr. Clark, the board of NCEL, the staff team at NCEL, for launching this brilliant conference. The theme of the conference, Situating Educational Leadership in National Development, is an interesting one. As some of you may have heard me said before, educational leadership is a seed and flower of national development, because the transformation of a society starts at the gates of the school, and that transformation is hinged on what goes on in the classrooms, in the staff rooms, in the corridors, in the playground, and within the school community as a whole. So I want to congratulate NCEL for bringing this debate, the role of leadership in national development, and how do we move beyond rhetoric? How do we move beyond sound bites? How do we move beyond talk? And what I do hope from this conference is that there will be actionable items coming out of this conference, some clear takeaways. I challenge you, a 10-point plan or a 5-point plan, so that next year and in 5 years' time, the conference can think back, what have we achieved against the 10-point plan or the 5-point plan? Once again, let us move beyond conversations to implementation, locating, or as the theme says, situating educational leadership in national development. Congratulations and Godspeed.
All right, special thanks to Professor Miller for those greetings. Now it's time to get into a heated discourse. It's time for our interrogative leadership discourse debate led by Jermaine Barrett of Jamaica Association for Debate and Empowerment. Now I'm going to invite our debaters to join me on the platform. You may be seated by your respective names. And our debaters join us from the University of Technology, Jamaica. We have Decardiago Nelson. Yes, give them a round of applause as they make their way. Sharissa Pinnock. Nagoma Nantambu Johnson. Yes, those are our representatives from UTech. And over on the University of the West Indies Mona side, Calicia Vassell, Matthew White, and Joshua Atkins. So the motion for today. This House believes that professional development for school administrators is more important than curriculum. This House believes that professional development for school administrators is more important than curriculum reform in achieving national development goals. Now, at this time, I will hand over to our debaters and Mr. Barrett to lead this portion of the program.
I don't know why the mic decides to misbehave the moment I get up here. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to associate myself with the protocols previously established. You're all very dignified and distinguished, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Leadership Day, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're about to witness a debate between two titanic debate teams from two great tertiary institutions, UTech and UWI-Mona. I will just describe for you what you're going to witness. And of course, I'm going to also, at various points in the debate, whenever you feel an urge to engage, I want you to applaud, I want you to cheer, I want you to express your agreement with the ideas that the debaters will be expounding on. And if you don't agree, feel free to shout shame. They're okay, they're used to it, they won't be offended at all. But before I do so, I just want to commend the National College for leadership, for educational leadership on, this really great institution, Leadership Day. I felt proud sitting there and hearing of the great work of the college. And I felt, that it was a really good decision when Karif called me, when I said yes, that Jade is really wanting to be a partner with this initiative. I did not know, Karif, how much excellence is embodied in this institution and in you in particular. I think we should give him a round of applause. Jade and the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, that's a new name. We are partners. We have fashioned an initiative that Dr. Cassandra, you will be pleased to hear, is about to get instituted. It's been a long while coming, but that initiative is called Debate Pulse. And what is Debate Pulse? It's an initiative whereby Jade takes its expertise and its capacities into the school system, and we transform the students using debating. Yes? And so what we're going to be doing, and by the way, Debate Pulse is an acronym. It means, the Pulse part means promoting understanding, leadership, and speech empowerment. And I'm sure there's nobody in the audience who would believe that this is not important and necessary. Yes? So what we'll be promoting communication skills development, critical thinking, confidence, creativity, conflict resolution. Notice all of those words begin with C, yes? Very, very important traits, skills that are desperately needed in the education system. So we are going to be starting phase 1 soon. We're working with the youth division within the Ministry of Education to start a sort of a pilot in 8 youth innovation centers that should get on the way in the summer months. And then once we have excelled at that, yes, the ministry is holding us accountable to prove our worth. And once we've done well at that, then we are wanting to take on a larger transformative phase 2, which would see us possibly being involved and working with 258 schools across Jamaica, equity schools. That's a big deal, right? Right, indeed. So we're really looking forward to transforming Jamaica, utilizing debating and sort of partnering more fulsomely with the Ministry of Education in their work. Ladies and gentlemen, I really like the quote expressed by our moderator a short while ago. But I have a quote of my own. I don't know who said it, and maybe you as educators can inform me. But the quote goes, it really seeks to define what education is. And it says, education is the leading of human minds to what is best and making what is best out of them. Yes? And that quote resonates with me. It defines what education is, and it also should be a part of the DNA of who we are as educational stakeholders. Yes? So again, thank you very much to the National College for Educational Leadership. Thank you to the Ministry of Education, Skills and Youth and Information rather. Thank you to all of you who are here, and put on your seatbelts, gear up, because this debate is going to be intense. We're going to be seeing the top debaters in the island from UTech, from UWI, engaging in a debate, a robust debate, on the question of whether it is professional development of educational leaders or curriculum development. Which of the two are more important path towards national development? Yes? I want to hear from you. If you believe that it's professional development, say aye. If you believe it's curriculum development, say aye. All right, it sounds about equal. It sounds about equal. I believe there is a QR code in your program. So see if you can just scan through the program, Karif. Oh, it's on screen. It's on screen. So use that QR code and register your vote. Which side do you think is a more significant and important contributor to national development? Yes? Personal development or curriculum development. So I'll allow you a few seconds to register your vote, because you are going to be a contributor to the outcome of the debate. The team in this debate that has successfully pushed the vote closer to their side, relatively speaking, that team will get 5 points. And that will be added to the points of the adjudicators. And ultimately, that will make potentially be the decider in the outcome of the match. So go ahead and cast your votes, yes? And so, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jermaine Barrett. I'm the founder and executive director of the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment. And I'm going to now take my seat to the adjudicator's desk. I'll introduce my colleague adjudicators once I get there, and then we will get the show started. Thank you all. All right, so I'm taking it, ladies and gentlemen, that you have all voted to capture your initial sentiments on the motion or stance on the motion. So I will be chairing this debate, and I will now allow my colleague adjudicators to introduce themselves.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Kalia Henry. I am the Deputy Programs Manager for the Primary Division for the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, and I will be a wing adjudicator for today's debate.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the debate teams, you'd have heard their names already. We have on-site proposition, the team agreeing with the motion and defending that professional development is a path towards national development, is UTech, University of Technology, Jamaica. And the first speaker on that team is, I believe it's Sharissa Pinnock. So we'll have Sharissa Pinnock coming forward, followed on that team by Ngoma Johnson, and rounding out the contributions of that team will be Decardiego Nelson. On the University of the West Indies team, we will have 3 debaters as well. We'll begin with the presentation from Joshua Atkins, followed by Calicia Vassell, and rounding out that team's contribution will be Matthew White. All right, so they have the motion rather, they have prepared. Let's get the show started. At this time, I call upon the Honorable Prime Minister to open the debate. Hear, hear.
Jamaica's Vision 2030 aims to make the country the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. A world-class education system is at the heart of this goal, as national development depends on skilled labor, innovation, and economic competitiveness. At the end of my speech, I would have done 3 things. I would have explained how professional development for school administrators is more sustainable, how it leads to better teacher retention, and how curriculum reform is likely to not be done well if it is the main focus. But some characterization. Jamaica's education system suffers not primarily from outdated curricula, but from institutional weaknesses that prevent effective learning. I will provide some framing as to the real barriers to national development. So we think that there are severe disparities between rural and urban schools. So rural schools are underfunded, lack resources, and have fewer trained teachers. The curriculum is the same worldwide, yet outcomes vary dramatically, proving that nationwide, yet outcomes vary dramatically, proving that administration and resource allocation are the root issues. We think that there's administrative inefficiency and there's a problem with poor leadership, right? So we think that many principals across the island lack modern school management training, leading to poor teacher support, inefficient resource allocation, and resistance to new policies. This results in unmotivated teachers, inconsistent
enforcement of policies. So we think that opposition has to explain to you why it is that even after we move from GSAT to PEP, that no significant impact was made. We can explain why. Because there's inconsistent implementation of the PEP curriculum reform shows that the problem isn't curriculum design, it's poor leadership and planning. And we think that there's also high teacher attrition and low morale. So over 400 teachers leave Jamaica annually, and it's not just because of monetary incentives. Weak leadership means schools do not provide incentives or support systems to retain those teachers. We solve it on that side. So we think that curriculum reform on their side of the house looks like making changes and improvements to the structure and content of educational programs. But even if curriculum is reformed, who ensures teachers are trained to deliver it? Who ensures students are disciplined enough to engage with it? And who ensures schools have the resources to implement it effectively? These questions are more important on our side of the house. My first claim is that even in a bad curriculum, strong administrators can adapt, supplement, and implement stopgap solutions. But even the best curriculum fails under weak leadership. What are my warrants? So 3 reasons. So we think that school administrators control teacher training, enforcement, and classroom execution. Even with flawed or outdated curricula, good principals ensure students still receive quality education by supplementing materials, adjusting teacher styles, and optimizing resources. An example of this is that many high-performing Jamaican schools already use creative problem solving within existing curricula, showing that leadership, not content, determines success. On the flip side, bad administrators, we think, mishandle even well-designed reforms. An example of this is the PEP reform, in which it introduced critical thinking elements, yet many schools failed to transition because administrators did not organize teacher retraining or engage parents. The problem was leadership, not curriculum content. And we think that there's a multiplier effect on our side of the house. Why? Because well-trained administrators not only manage curriculum changes effectively, their influence permeates every aspect of school operation, making their development a foundational lever for success. So the impact of this is that good administrators create workarounds for curriculum gaps, but no curriculum can override bad leadership. And education systems, we think, are dynamic. National development requires leaders that can continuously adjust rather than waiting on slow curriculum overhauls. And my second argument is that schools cannot drive national development if they keep losing their best teachers due to poor management and weak leadership. What are my warrants? So we think that poor school leadership leads to stress, burnout, and lack of professional development, causing even passionate teachers to leave. Schools do not have structured mentorship or support systems because administrators lack the training to implement them. The impact of this is that a well-trained school administrator can prevent teacher attrition by fostering a positive work environment, ensuring teachers are well supported and motivated. Without strong leadership, teachers will continue to leave regardless of curriculum updates, worsening Jamaica's brain drain and damaging long-term national development. But to take a detour, we also think this debate extends to why curriculum reform is likely to be done bad if it is that it is placed as more important. We think the ease at which we get our impacts should be taken into account. So firstly, curriculum reform faces cultural resistance. We think that Jamaican society values traditional education methods. So for example, rote learning or heavy standardized testing. Teachers, parents, and even policymakers resist drastic curriculum changes because they see them as risky. And we see that again with GSAT when it was replaced by PEP. Parents and teachers struggle to adjust, leading to confusion and inconsistent application. Cultural inertia slows adoption and leads to half measures. So why is it that administrative reform avoids this? So we think that administrators are already seen as authority figures, meaning training them does not require massive public buy-in. And we think that professional development is gradual, so it does not trigger sudden backlash like curriculum overhauls. We also think that curriculum reform is time-consuming and bureaucratic. So new curricula requires years of planning, piloting, and gradual scaling, meaning results take a decade or more to materialize. Governments change every 5 years, so curriculum reforms are often abandoned or poorly implemented due to political shifts. This Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC reform, has been in discussion for years, yet implementation remains patchy. So by the time a new curriculum is fully implemented, it is already outdated, making the reform cycle ineffective. Opposition has the burden of proving why it is that these things will change. Why administrative reform avoids this is that principals can implement training in real time rather than waiting on years for bureaucratic approvals. And we think that there's significantly less political bottlenecks on our side of the house because professional development programs don't require curriculum approval cycles, making reform more agile. It is for these reasons that you have to side with proposition. Thank you.
We thank the Honorable Prime Minister, Madam Sherissa Pinnock, and now call upon the Leader of the Opposition, Joshua Atkins, to open the speech on behalf of the University of the West Indies, Mona.
Am I being heard? So I just want to start this speech by saying what proposition would have you believe is that teachers writ large are ineffective, principals aren't allocating resources properly, do not bite. Rather, they create a host of problems in their world. We concede to those problems, for example, the divide between the rural and the urban. They don't mechanize clearly how professional development fixes this issue, right? They say curriculum reform isn't going to happen well because there's going to be a backlash effect. I just want to say backlash only happens when we're talking about radical reform. That looks like PEP, overhauling systems entirely and like just shifting the perspective in a radical way that teachers just cannot accommodate. But more than that, we're going to tell you that we have the fiat to say that this happens in stages further on, right? Proposition does not prove their burden properly. Rather than simply saying there are a host of benefits to professional development, they talk about things like brain drain, but I'll tell you how that worsens in our world when teachers, when educators writ large are given more training in terms of professional development. What am I going to do in this speech? 3 things. 1, I'm going to show what curriculum looks like contrary to what they're trying to force on us. 2nd, I'm going to talk about why we fix a lot of issues that exist in the education system with curriculum reform. And 3rd, why the counterfactual is counterintuitive to development goals. Firstly, what does curriculum reform look like? I think in its most basic form, it's the idea of changing to a great extent the system of learning goals, outcomes, and mechanisms to which we achieve that. That is to say, we fundamentally change our educational outlook on the means to which we get to them. Note here, my point of contention or opposition is the mechanisms to which we achieve our goals, which is primarily the issue in this debate in my specific speech. What do these mechanisms look like? I think the first mechanism is a sort of prioritization of quantity over quality. It's evident in status quo that students are forced to do large quantities of subject from the time they enter high school, for example. Here, you do 14 subjects per year with little opportunity to determine at least what specifically you do. This is contrasted with developed nations, for example, the US, who have children do 3 core subjects, for example, English, math, social studies per semester, and the ability to do 3 or more electives of their choice. In light of this, it's important to point out that the educational outcomes are vastly different, as evidenced by Jamaica's PISA ranking globally as being 62 in educational outcomes versus that of the US. Note here, even if there's a consideration based on the resources, I don't see how having less resources leads to an overburdened curriculum which children find hard to cope with, and so do teachers. Note, proposition does not fix this in their world. Rather, they would have teachers be trained and go back into these very fundamentally flawed systems and then still feel a sort of I'm going to mechanize that further, but they're going to feel overburdened, right? Second is the culture surrounding attitudes towards education. I think within the education system is the fact of 3 things. 1, learning is too unilateral and one-sided, first of all. But second, the classroom is too formal, which takes away from the personal comfort that can be derived from learning. That's to say, For example, teachers force students to speak things like for example, speak English, right? Which in personalized learning, there's too much a fixation on things that don't affect learning outcomes, for example. But the third thing we say is that teachers, in trying to achieve their KPIs, have to outcompete 13 other subjects that are competing with the interest and attention of the child, which leads to teachers sacrificing quality to meet learning goals. The issue here is that because teachers are trying to meet their standardized testing metrics, which is their metric of success, when teachers want a certain level or rate of pass, they aren't necessarily incentivized to have children individually understand, but rather they're trying to rush through because they know that the child has to do 13 other subjects. And even in the case of CSEC, there's still a heavy workload. Even in the case of CAPE, there's a heavy workload despite the quantity, right? How do we fix these fundamental issues? I'm going to say, one, curriculum reform tackles root issues which affect learning outcomes for 3 reasons. And I think this ties into our developmental goal, which makes students more competitive globally. A, it lessens the workload on students by adopting almost a system comparable to that of the US, for example, where students do less subjects per semester with a wider ambit of choice. Note here, students also feel very pressured by the very demanding nature of doing 14 subjects for the first 3 years of high school in the first place. When students are unable to cope during those first 3 years, what happens? It leads to things like children turning to cheating, which we as, you guys as educators really don't like, because academic dishonesty is not something to be valued. But secondly, they disengage and start failing, which perpetuates when they go up to things like 10th grade, 11th grade, and 6th form. It carries over because of the disengagement that took place in the first 3 years. But thirdly, it reduces their educational achievements, which makes them unlikely to matriculate or matriculate well, right? We think decreasing the workload decreases likelihood of harms I mentioned before, because they have a lot less on their plate and they're able to better focus. But more than that, even if their choices don't increase, it can look like breaking 14 subjects up into 7 per semester and reviewing syllabi to make subjects more efficient and concise versus the long, drawn-out, and sometimes unimpactful manner in which subjects are taught. But secondly, it forces a shift away from the harmful nature of education. I think oftentimes students aren't interested because classrooms are too formal and fail to catalyze personal appreciation of education. That's to say, students feel too much like learning is a job because of how subjects are delivered. Fixation on KPIs, fixation on speaking English, lack of discovery, or lack of focus on discovery learning. I think curriculum reform can do a few things. It can force teachers to deliver their sessions, for example, in Jamaican Creole. Note here, these are just examples, right? There's a broader principle that you can make education in a very real way more personalized to students for them to appreciate it, outside of just the idealization of education, which teachers generally are caught up within. Why does the counterfactual incentivize things like brain drain? I'm going to say teachers have to do a 15 seconds? Okay. So teachers have to do a load of work to compensate for learning gaps within an overburdened education system. And the fact that test taking is their most supreme metric means they have to ensure that students are passing tests. When outcomes aren't desirable, teachers get blamed and feel unappreciated. We think this worsens their desire to leave, because despite their attempts at trying to solve... Okay.
Indeed, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is going well, isn't it? Excellent ideas coming out from both sides of the debate. By way of information, this format that you're witnessing is a format developed by the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment. It's a Jade Parliamentary Debate format. And you're going to see, thank you, please. And you're going to see a unique element coming up now. It's called the cross-examination section. This is where the opposition team first gets a chance to ask 3 questions of the proposition team, and those questions are limited each to 10 seconds. So, Madam Timekeeper, please monitor the time. So 10 seconds for each question, and each response by the proposition team is limited to 30 seconds, all right? After that has ended, then we transition to the proposition team, allowing them to ask 3 questions of the opposition team, and the time rules apply just the same. All right, so opposition, are you ready? I'm hearing silence. Opposition. Team, the University of the West Indies, Mona, you may now proceed to ask your first question within 10 seconds to the proposition team, University of Technology, Jamaica. Begin.
In an overburdened curriculum where students have to do so much and teachers have to do so much and get blamed for when students fail, how do you treat with the idea that teachers migrate because of, one, the workload?
Hello? Yeah, so first, we don't... Hello? Okay. So first, we don't agree with the characterization that the reason in which students are so disengaged is because they're doing like 14 subjects. We think that a lot of these subjects are just like HFLE, like that are needed for their holistic development and aren't as burdensome as you would have made it out to seem. But we also think that this debate is not about whether or not curriculum reform is important. We definitely think it's important. We just don't think it's more important than training student administration, because we think that it is not the fact that... Yeah, so time? All right, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. Another question from Team Mona.
Okay, this one's working. How do you contend with the idea that presently the very same social issues you've highlighted make the current curricula a source of eradicating any objective meritocracy in educational status quo?
All right, could you go again with that one more time? One more time. A bit slower too would be nice.
How do you contend with the idea that presently the same social issues you've highlighted, coupled with an unfit curricula, eradicate any semblance of objective meritocracy in educational status quo?
It's more meritocratic to allow the schools to decide what metrics the students should pursue after all. By standardizing everyone to go by the same test, you make people who start at different positions have to race against people starting before or behind them, before or in front of them.
And the final question from the Mona, posed to the University of Technology team. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, that which you witness is a product of your system, the education system, channeling students to become as talented and as educational as they are. Intellectual. Beautiful. Yes. Question from Yui.
How do you contend with the idea that administration and teachers, which brings to the bulk of the labor force at schools, already engaged a sort of curriculum reform that works at a granular level, which is them adjusting their teaching styles and their teaching modalities?
Yeah, I think that questions in a way kind of answers itself, because it's still largely dependent on whether or not the teacher is competent. More so, the administrative staff, which guides the teachers, is competent and ready enough, like having the necessary resources and equipments to actually foster that kind of mentorship. So it looks like a hierarchical effect in that. Firstly, the administrators are empowered, then they empower the teachers, who then empower the students, who then empower the families of the student, and by extension, the larger society.
All right, thank you very much, Yui Mona, for those questions. Thank you, UTech, for those responses. UTech, it's now your time to pose questions to the Yui Mona.
Right, so my first question to the opposition. At no point in your speech have you addressed, firstly, why is this the empowerment of teacher particularly necessary? If the curriculum form alone is a solution, why do schools with the same...
Sorry. 10 seconds.
Could you repeat?
So the question is, if curriculum reform alone is the solution, why do schools with the same curriculum have vastly different outcomes?
We think that in as much as schools have the same curriculum, there are different outcomes, simply because we've already highlighted that it's socioeconomic problems that are actually the roots of the problem. The curriculum exacerbates this problem because the current curriculum is standardized, which means that giving everybody the same test completely ignores the fact that one student goes home to optimum Wi-Fi and a silent background, and the next one goes home to gang violence and no Wi-Fi, therefore limiting their ability to effectively perform in the current system.
All right. I think our debate is taking shape. UTech, your second question.
Yeah, so in as much as you can prevent socioeconomic issues, wouldn't it be more effective to train administrators to handle and to adapt to those different socioeconomic benefits, considering that the content...
We'll allow the question to be asked again because I don't think you, Mona, got a chance to get the essence of it. But you have 10 seconds, so keep it short.
Yeah. So how will curriculum reform be implemented properly if administrators are untrained and resistant to change?
Okay. So first of all, we need to debunk this idea that all administrators and all teachers are untrained. It's not true. What you need to allow administrators and teachers to do is the freedom to adjust their teaching styles and modalities and what they are dispensing so they're able to affect the key stakeholders at that granular level. That already happens in schools where teachers and heads of departments come together and say, okay, we don't think this is working that way, let's do it another way. But when you constrain teachers and principals and heads of department to KPIs, they can't do that.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for the reactions as well, members of the audience. At this time, the debate it now proceeds with the presentation from the second proposition speaker. His name is Nogomo Nantambo Gordon Johnson. Here.
Here. All right, here we go. All right. Whew. All right. Second. Okay. Boop. Yeah, words. All right. All right. There's no solvency in ops worlds. What it is and not to be formalized is caused by an organizational coherence problem. That is, the private sector requires things that the school system isn't equipping them with. We argue arduous curriculum is a symptom of this lack of knowledge, resulting from a lack of professional development. The Ministry of Education themselves don't know what to equip students with, as the problems that the staff are being trained to solve have evolved and changed to more pressing matters. The first claim we will open discussion with is this disconnect between education and employment opportunities can be remedied by school staff having tangible, real-world experiences in the field schools are training their students for. Technology changes learning faster than any curriculum can. Instead of rewriting curricula, administrators should focus on integrating technology and non-direct means of getting an education to students. The problem with curricula is that they become a burden by offering solutions for a world that no longer exists due to changes in circumstances. It is always a temporary measure for something better. In today's globalized world, children adopt behaviors and knowledge from all corners of the earth too quickly to be formalized in a curriculum. Our parents grew up with little to no smartphone technology, and AI was just beginning to emerge. Even those implementing curriculum reforms do so with the lens ill-adjusted for the reality this generation and the next must overcome. The old model of earning a degree and relying on a stable job for 10, 20 years is long dead. A curriculum reform cannot prevent nor account for radical shifts in the job market. Our last educational reform was in 2016. Instead of investing in temporary and expensive curriculum reforms, professional development should be prioritized so administrators can gain the lens appropriate for the changes demanded for the future. If administrators themselves model initiatives based on faulty metrics, we are doomed to repeat the same results. Professional development is not just needed, but it's an integral part of education today. Accepted?
We're arguing that curriculum reform can be responsive, it can be immediate, and it is the most impactful and immediate way students are able to see educational change.
First things first, the curriculum is a standardized protocol across the board. It's not immediate. It takes a while to implement, and even after implemented, it stays a while. If it doesn't become vestigial now, it will become obsolete in the future. All right, Warrant 2. During COVID-19, massive changes radically altered educational institutions. Independent of the codified curriculum, again, there's a problem with immediacy. Things happen fast, too fast for you to possibly formalize. It was our school administrators who navigated these changes, demonstrated that highly improbable events cannot be accounted for in a curriculum. By definition, highly improbable disruptions in models cannot be predicted. A one-size-fits-all approach weakens the system, making it vulnerable to collapse in the face of a crisis, as what's deadly in one school is presumably deadly to all others. All of them share a similar approach. A contrast to the diversity of personality and techniques staff can garner in our world by allowing greater autonomy of admins to shape their staff to changing demands and particular circumstances. If teachers and staff were more educated and otherwise developed, the deficits that curriculum reform aims to solve will become illusory. Educators with real-world experience in their fields can bridge the gap between academic theory and practical application. For example, personal example, my animation teacher is also a freelance graphic designer and illustrator. While training students to be artists, he remains active in the industry himself, personalizing his lessons to prepare students for the real-world status quo. Through him, I developed an employable skill outside of the curriculum, pursuing said curriculum. It wasn't required nor offered by the curriculum. It was an unwritten benefit that came from the personal professional development, his personal professional development. This informal curriculum, embodied by the knowledge of the school staff, is just as important as a formal curriculum. With professional development, it's possible to get more than what you paid for. But curriculum reform limits it to just what's formalized, just what you know. The impact of this is schools become reliable pathways to employment as students recognize that their teachers and staff can connect them with industry opportunities. This fosters greater student engagement and discipline as they see tangible benefits from their education beyond just grades. A part solvency for the mismatch between curriculum requirements and the demands of the private sector. Simply formalizing these discrepancies in the curriculum won't help because one must formalize and not are always trading. You need people with the knowledge before you can implement it. All right, the next claim will be the blueprint for how to reach a destination is less important than having a good guide to get there. We subconsciously simplify ideas to fit our level of perception. Good ideas are limited by the prerequisite skills needed to enforce them. Curriculum reform ignores the personal lives of administrators, yet these lives influence how administrators, how managers treat staff, how staff treat teachers, how teachers treat students, and of course how students now approach the world. This can be remedied by mandatory staff training, guidance, and counseling to encourage interpersonal skills, improving both educator effectiveness and student engagement by providing inner-city youth and otherwise economically disadvantaged students, the bulk of the underperforming students in the status quo, proper role models that they lack at home, lessening behavioral barriers to employment. We're more byproduct of the behaviors of the people around us rather than the facts and lessons they regurgitate. We would not like our children to become highly educated but socially defective people. Lost people can't lead each other. A curriculum can outline objectives, but it is at the end of the day a vision that needs believers to implement it. If the school admins themselves do not believe in their mission, neither will students. On that notion, it should be noted, of course, these curriculums don't deal at all with the social issues that underlie why the students are underperforming. It just takes it for granted that we are all a tabula rasa and we can all be molded into one direction. On warrant 2, furthermore, education must not only make students smart but also relevant to the society in which they function. Credentialism is a fault metric. Getting straight A's is good, but this practical application of said metrics is the real world. While navigating the social dynamics and randomness you operate in is a different skill set altogether. For example, if a country produces an excess of science and technology graduates without a corresponding private sector demand, although by all metrics they are occupations that shape our future, they only add to the employment rate or brain drain due to being maladapted to the current economic state of affairs they find themselves in. Professional development grants staffs first and a practical experience with occupational or personal success with a trickle-down effect of equipping students to navigate the uncertain job market. Professional development serves as a testing ground for best practices, allowing educators to refine methods before formalizing them into a curriculum. By prioritizing professional development, administrators lay a strong foundation for any future curriculum reform, ensuring that teachers are already equipped with the necessary skills to implement them effectively. The goal of education should not be able to enforce compliance with outdated metrics, but become more adapted to the current environment. Children do not only have the right to be in school, but also learn while they're there and to emerge with the skills they need to find secure, well-paid work.
All right, thank you very much, Ngoma Nantambo Gordon Johnson, our Deputy Prime Minister. At this time, we make welcome the lady herself, Calicia T. Vassell, Deputy Leader of the Opposition. And I'm made to understand that the T is important. Calicia, over to you.
The tea is quite important. So before I get into my substantives, I'd like to respond to the most pressing concern I think that we've heard from proposition, that the curriculum reform is going to take long. They also say it's not going to be done well, but I'll debunk this myth, this particularly fallacious myth, as I get into my substantives. Curriculum reform is going to take long. I'll bite the bullet. Yes, it might take long. So what? Constitutional reform takes long, and we're pursuing that. Just because our policy reform is going to take long, it does not defeat the inherent value that it poses to its primary stakeholders, which I might add are the students that side proposition has completely neglected thus far. far. Now I'll get into my substantives. I'll preface my arguments by highlighting that education does not exist in a vacuum. It exists in a system where students are already disadvantaged by social issues like poverty and subsequently access to key resources needed to optimize their educational outcomes. So the question isn't merely a matter of changing professional development versus a change in curriculum, but rather which is more likely to catalyze the most positive change for the educational outcomes of the nation's youth within the status quo. Yeah. So as Mr. Barrett rightfully said, education is leading human minds to what is best and getting what is best out of them. How can we get what is best out of the nation's youth in status quo? We don't get the best out of students by forcing them to co-opt a false meritocracy, which is what exists in status quo, because in as much as standardized testing is meant to be fair, it's not. It's not fair because, as I would have mentioned in my response, students go home to different backgrounds that affect the way that they're able to engage in education in status quo. Some students go home to optimal resources and some go home to none. In status quo, this is a direct response to how this is a direct engagement rather of them in the current educational system. Because if it is that I go home and I can't do my homework, then I'm significantly disadvantaged in comparison to the student who can. This brings me to my first substantive. Administrators don't control what students learn. The government bench argues that professional development for administrators is the key to fixing the education system. However, this assumes that they are the primary problem, but they aren't, and I'll tell you why. In as much as they oversee school operations, they have little say over the structure of the curriculum itself. So if the content and the learning model remain outdated, professional development will simply train them to manage an ineffective system more efficiently, not to fix it. So the same systemic issues accepted.
Right, so we see different outcomes even within the same socioeconomic situations. We think that it doesn't have to do with the socioeconomic situation, but the culture of the school itself.
So that's a direct contradiction to what you would have said in your speech, in as much as you tell us that it's those social issues that make the school system unfair, and because the school system is unfair as is, that's why we need to train professionals better to manage those socioeconomic problems. So not particularly understanding your POI. So back to my substantives. So overtraining administrators within the status quo is just going to give them more leeway to enhance and to further entrench the educational system and its students into the very same problems that it's existing. So they're just going to come back with a new incentive, revitalized to enforce the same KPIs to the very same students who are still underprepared to engage with these KPIs in the first place. And that in and of itself is a problem that proposition has not fixed. So even if we take their case at its best, the systemic issues will still persist. For them to win this debate, they must prove how the benefits they preach about can either not accepted, can only be achieved in their world, or is achieved to a greater degree in their world in spite of the systemic issues that exist. Whatever their flippant responses are, I urge you to reject them and consider this. They tell us this fallacious idea that if curriculum reform happens, teachers will be unprepared en masse and the educational sector will collapse. Don't buy it. Curriculum reform organically drives better professional development. So even if we take Gov at their best and we optimize, actually, scrap that. So the relationship that exists between the education system and teachers mirrors supply and demand. If we dramatically reform the curriculum to change the teaching structure and to change the content, it will shift the requirements for teachers, which means that teacher training institutions will shift the way that they train those teachers, such that the way they're training them is now conducive to whatever the curriculum reform is. So we do get organic professional development. So this whole idea about that if we reform the curriculum, the educational sector is going to fall flat, it's completely false and it's completely unproven. And I've just told you why. In fact, it can work and why it will work. We think that the benefits of this is twofold, in as much as we see where we get a better curriculum and we still get better teachers that are trained to effectively manage a curriculum that is actually what is best for the students. We also think that the professional development that will happen organically in our world is better, just because as opposed to the artificial, forced bureaucratic way that proposition will do it, what we get is an organic way, as I would have mentioned. So now that we've proven that curriculum reform can be done well, how does curriculum reform en masse lead to better outcomes for national development? Within that one, it emphasizes civic engagement, so the system produces more students that are better able to engage with Jamaica's governmental state of affairs. A lot of the times, students aren't able to engage in civic conversations because they're so busy hustling and bustling with these 14 subjects that my leader would have mentioned. They're busy battling with biology and chemistry and math and English and Spanish, and the list goes on. So much so that they're unable to participate in conversations that are crucial to the system that they exist in, which is Jamaica. So when we free students from this shackle, from this severe workload, they're better able to engage in these conversations. What do we get en masse? We get more educated students that are generally just more aware about what's happening culturally, socially, and politically in Jamaica. And then we get students that are leaving schools and are better able to participate in democratic processes. So we're curbing voter apathy on our side of the house, and we're getting better governance in as much as we see where we're putting out people who are much more likely to hold the government accountable because they're educated regarding civics. My opposition would have also mentioned that it makes students globally competitive. We think the impact and the importance of this is that when we have globally competitive students, we attract rather global interest. What does this look like? We think this looks like an increase in foreign investment in as much as we see where these students and therefore the human resource of the country is going to be much more educated and just much more attractive for foreign investment. We think having a population and eventually a workforce that is globally competitive attracts global investment, which directly correlates to Jamaica's national 2030 development goals. So as I close, these are unique benefits that you get in Gov's world, because these aren't unique benefits that you get in Gov's world because they haven't fixed any of the problems that they've highlighted, but we have. We've proven to you why curriculum reform takes precedence over professional development, because even if we train teachers more, the problem still persists. We tell you how we get organic development, and we've shown you how reform directly achieves the realization of national development goals. Vote up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Astounding arguments coming to us from both teams in this debate. Would you agree? If you agree, say hear, hear. If you don't agree, say shame. Oh? Really? All right. Well, our debate continues. We're going to enter another period of cross-examination as we had in the first phase. Opposition team, that's Team UEMONA, gets a chance to ask 3 questions of Team UTEC. Team UTEC responds, and follow that, we get 3 questions posed from UTEC to UE. Recall, debaters, that a question is limited to 10 seconds. I know it's hard, but it's just 10 seconds, and response is limited to 30 seconds. Team UEMONA, your first question.
Given that teacher training institutions adjust the curriculum changes, why is your model of artificial, bureaucratic, mandated development preferable to a system that naturally evolves through reform?
Can you repeat again? I'm so sorry.
Given that training institutions adjust the curriculum changes, why is your model of artificial, bureaucratic, forced development preferable to a system that naturally evolves through reform, so we get the best of both worlds in our side?
Yeah, so I think that opposition still did not answer my first question, is why is it that PEP did not work? Considering the fact that we literally changed the curriculum to a situation where there are no critical thinking. So it was this whole thing, critical thinking, the students are actually going to learn to adapt this and this. But it did not work because it was poor planning, and you guys still do not justify why it is that it does not work. Please answer this for the audience.
Another question, UEMONA?
Why is it that you think trained professionals are going to stay in an environment that is not conducive to learning and burdens them?
Right, so it's clear that the opposition has not listened to the pleas of the JTA. It's not the fact that they're doing 14 subjects why the school environment is so unconducive. It's the fact that the students aren't disciplined. It's the fact that the culture isn't conducive to learning. It's the fact that they feel underappreciated. It's the fact that they're burnt out because they aren't trained to adapt and deal with it as well. So the problem that you would have posed is that they're doing 14 subjects, so the teachers are unhappy. But that's not the reason why the teachers are unhappy. They tell us why they're unhappy.
To be honest,
yeah, I said 3 things.
Yes, it's time for your third question, UEMONA. I hear the conversations brewing in the audience. It's good. It's exciting thoughts and ideas. Excellent. Please do note that you get a chance at the end of this debate to indicate whether or not either team has swayed you, all right? And it's a team that sways the most of you who gets the 5 points, and that might very well sway the debate ultimately. Mona, your third question.
Okay. Birds. Just to sort of reiterate, why is it that you think that teachers are going to leave their jobs because they think their bosses are unprofessional and not because the curriculum forces them to do too much work in too short of a time?
If that's your contention, then it would make more sense to develop the teachers to handle those burdens.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mona, for those 3 questions. Excellent questions, I thought, and thanks for the excellent responses. Team UTech Jamaica. This time, the UTech team, Team Proposition, gets to pose 3 questions to Team Opposition, Mona.
All right, I'm going to answer, all right. Wouldn't it be more effective to develop the staff that would then implement the curriculum reforms, as one is, as you seeded, more immediate, and 2, a more developed staff would presumably implement the curriculum reforms more effectively?
I want to remind you, for this entire debate, you've been arguing about training administrators of schools and not the staff. We've been talking about the staff. And to be more clear, we think we should empower the teachers to make changes in the curriculums that they are dispensing so they feel more valued by the school system. What you have been saying is that teachers are going to get up and leave their jobs because they don't agree with their principals. Not true.
UTech, your second question.
Yes. So on the question of global competitiveness, how do you decide which subjects to cut when persons in China are doing bio and chemistry? Do you cut bio or chemistry? Oh, was that not?
So nobody said that we were going to cut questions. As a matter of fact, what the opposition leader actually said was that instead of forcing them to do all 14 in a single semester, we're going to split it up so the load is much more manageable throughout there. So that's absolutely not what we're saying at all.
And now we welcome the final question from the proposition team, UTech Jamaica.
All right, so what is the point of a perfect curriculum if students are disengaged, violent, or skipping school? Doesn't school leadership and culture determine whether students actually engage with learning?
Yeah, so I think there's a fundamental unappreciation for what happens when you have an overburdened curriculum. I think we've stated 3 things, but there are more harms. For example, they turn to cheating, they disengage and start failing, and it reduces their education achievements, which makes them unlikely to matriculate, which then puts the blame on teachers to compensate for a failing curriculum or a system that is fundamentally flawed, which you haven't treated with other than simply saying train them more to deal with a flawed system rather than changing the root issue.
All right, thank you very much for that second period of cross-examination. Ladies and gentlemen, the debate will now pause for 2 minutes. I'll allow a 2-minute pause because I want to hear from you. So if somebody could just get a roving mic to pass it around, and let's get some quick sentiments, some quick comments from our audience. The 2-minute pause begins now, and let's use those 2 minutes wisely. Let's have a roving mic going to the audience. Raise your hand if you have a comment to make.
Yes, very good debate so far. I like the point that was made that professional development is organically a part of curricular reform, and it should be considered as an important part of it. I like the fact that UTech has shown how leadership can change outcomes in schools despite similar curricula. So I think it's a very good debate.
Thank you. Is that Miss Winnie Berry?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry, that
No.
sounded a bit like this.
It's Norda Seymour Hall. Thank you.
All right, thank you so very much. Thank you. All right, another comment. Do we have any other comment? Okay.
I think an important thing that is happening is that one side is taking the bait that is being offered by another side, and I won't say which side is which, but then we've fallen into this trap of arguing which one is more important when a third option is there, that they are equally as important.
Well, unfortunately, they don't have that option, you know. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the views expressed by these debaters are not necessarily their own. All right. All right. One more comment, and then we have to throw back to the debate.
Good morning, Donna Marie Nevin. I was interested in the comment about children's backgrounds not being equitable, and I would argue that children who can adapt and perform in an inequitable environment actually can compete in a global environment because the world is not fair.
All right, thank you so very much. A round of applause for those three comments. Very insightful. I hope they'll be of some use to our debaters. All right, so at this time, we call upon first the third speaker from Team Opposition. That's you, Mona. Let's make welcome Matthew White. Fun fact, his middle name is Owen and Dillon. So it's Matthew Owen Dillon White, right, Matthew?
Yes, they are.
Good.
I'm actually going to take this off. Before I start, I have to say we've been freezing over there. All right. I am going to simplify this debate for you. This debate happens in very simple words and very simple terms, quite frankly. First thing, they haven't told you what professional development is. They don't know what it is, and that's why they haven't told you. The second thing is, they haven't told you what the rate of change is. At what point in time does professional development get to the outcomes that they talk about? In fact, the outcomes that they talk about, that is the granular level of change that students feel, comes from curriculum reform. They say the only way you can change the way the school systems work, which is through curriculum reform, is when you have professionally developed persons. So listen to this. What they've been telling you is they want to professionally develop you so you can do stopgap work, so you don't have to change the system and what is wrong with it. That's what they want to do. So, to return to the point of the debate, I'll remind you of the motion. The motion asks you, what is the quickest way or the best way to get to the national development goals? Which one do you prioritize first? We think that when you have deprioritizes teachers, that deprioritizes admin, and makes them feel undervalued, overworked, and wanting to leave the education system, what you need to do first is encourage them to stay. You encourage them to stay by telling them, we value you. We know you've been working. We know you know the students. Change the way you're dispensing the curriculum, which is curriculum reform, and get them to understand the material better through whatever modalities you so choose. Because curriculum reform is what allows students to feel the impact of education, which is the national development goal we're looking at in particular. Right? I want to address something that's been really hitting at my mind. What they've been telling you is the real reason teachers are leaving is because the man principal don't agree, which is so strange. Nobody leaves their job because they and their bosses don't agree. They might quit and go work in some other firm in the sector. Hold on. You cannot mean to tell me that when the teacher is sitting down at night, she's not thinking about the fact that she's having to teach 17 different classes with 150 different students and she's not being paid well enough. And that the real reason she's leaving is because her and her boss don't agree. That's a strange assertion to make from side government. It's a strange assertion to make. The real thing that influences teachers to leave is the fact that they feel undervalued. Their work is not being valued in the school system. And the only way to make them feel valued is by empowering them and their admin staff to make changes as they see necessary so that the teachers feel the impact of education. When you allow them to do that first, then you can train them to do it better. When you allow them to make those fundamental changes first at the granular level, you can enable them to do it better by sending them to school for it. Say, for example, you need to fish, right? And you send a man to fish. You can send him to school to do it and teach him how to tow the line and throw over the rod. But when he goes to the pond, he's not going to know what to do. When he goes out to sea, he's not going to know what to do. But if you say to him, try it first, try your hand at it first, so they understand what they're doing, they get a better understanding of how to fish and how to go about that process, and then you train him, you get a better outcome. This is specifically true of schools because of the apathy that teachers have and their desire to leave in the first place. When you train them first, what the outcome actually is that teachers and administrators feel that they're being trained to fix those stopgap issues. They feel as though they're being trained to stop children from fighting. They feel as though they're being trained to solve all these fundamental issues with the education system, yet the person at the very top are not wanting to fix the education system itself, right? So to close off, what has the government told you? They've told you that the real outcomes that come out of professional development is a sort of drip from top-down change. Principal is professionally trained, he's impacting his teachers are impacting their students, right? We think what really happens, what they're really describing, is that persons are trained to change their school systems, their curriculums, to implement the change. We think that should come first. When you put the cart before the horse, persons feel as though they're being trained to fix the entire world. Have you ever been in a room where you have a PhD and they say, okay, fix all the problems with our system, right? Fix all the issues that exist. It's going to feel like a lot more burden and work, and that's what teachers and principals already feel like. They have the world on their head. We think that we should enable them to make small granular level changes first, which is included in curricular reform, and then get them trained to do that work better. Thank you.
Oh, I got lost in the arguments. I forgot I have a role to perform. Thank you very much, Matthew White, for that brilliant closing speech on behalf of the opposition team, Yui Mona. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, give a hand for the final speaker from Team UTEC, the proposition team. Hear, hear. Of course, just before the gentleman gets started, at the end of this debate, we, the judges, will take away ourselves, right, to go and deliberate. And then we leave you to engage with the debaters. So feel free then to ask questions and interrogate the issues a little bit more. Hopefully we'll be back shortly thereafter with the results. All right. Be reminded as well that at the end of the debate you are to vote again. So if your opinions has changed, you indicate that change. If it remains the same, you indicate it just the same. And we will take the data, and the team that has achieved the greatest shift in their favor will be the team that gets 5 points from the audience added to the judges' score, and who knows, it might be the determinant for this very, very keenly contested debate. Decar Diego Nelson, over to you.
Thank you, Jermaine. Before I actually begin my speech, I'd just like to mention that the proposition endorses all shames that were sent to the third speaker just now. What he said was absolutely ludicrous. I'll begin my speech firstly, and all protocols observed. Good morning to all members in the audience. First, I'd like to point out that this debate is not merely about an educational reform. It is really about which reform will actually work in the context of our society. Both sides in this debate have acknowledged the failures of the education system, but the real question is, do we focus on rewriting the curriculum, or do we first ensure those who are responsible for executing the curriculum are actually equipped to lead? The opposition stands before you just now, excited about a massive curriculum overall, probably dropping a few subjects, arguing that education will improve if we change what is being taught. But their case has a fundamental flaw, because the curriculum is only as effective as the people who are implementing it, which are the school administrators who lead and direct, the teachers who then lead and direct, the students who then bring that into their families, and that obviously affects the wider society, which leads to the national development goals that we are actually arguing for today. Now, why the opposition case fails? Firstly, the opposition misdiagnoses the problem because leadership failure, not curriculum content, is the actual crisis in society. The opposition claims that curriculum is the root of the problem, and if we change the syllabi and remove subjects, education will improve, but this ignores the harsh reality. Firstly, Jamaica has already undergone a curriculum change reform, most recently in 2016, and still Jamaica still is not largely seeing the significant benefits or upgrades from PEP, from GSAT. And as Charissa rightfully mentioned, teachers are not actually complaining about the subjects that they're teaching. They're actually complaining about the lack of representation, lack of accountability. So, for example, when we compare schools in terms of socioeconomic benefits, we can compare the actual success story of St. Diego High School versus St. Catherick High School, which have two very similar backgrounds, but one is doing far better now in terms of ranking, in terms of their performance and school challenge quiz, which is St. Diego High School. And why is that? Mind you, they're doing the same curriculum, but the significant difference is a change in administration. It's basically to say a company doing so bad for so long, but now because they have a significant shift in administration, they are doing better because the leader actually has vision, he's actually implementing that vision, and people are able to buy into that vision, not so much because of an understanding of the curriculum or the syllabi. So the real crisis in education is the poor school leadership, which administrators will lack modern management skills, struggle to support teachers, and fail to create environments where students can thrive, not the curriculum. So the curriculum, really and truly, if we take it into actual reality, is just basically some words on a page, which is useless if ineffectively implemented. And the opposition model does nothing to address the root problem, which is the people who are supposed to bring change back and the tools necessary to do so. Now, the opposition plan creates more disruption and not less, as they would have had you believe, in Matthew's kind of trying to give you some kind of, I don't know, like gaslighting you to believe that. Thousands of teachers will require retraining, and that's the basic reality of it, because causing disruption in learning for years requires that teachers will have to be retrained. So that's still something uniquely beneficial on our side. National exams must be redesigned, which is costly and time consuming, because as I said, we're still not seeing the benefits of PEP, and PEP was implemented back in 2016, and that's like almost 11 years ago. So we still don't see that immediate benefit. And students caught in transition after years suffer the most, because as seen with previous reforms where exams formats are changed midway through their schooling, they suffer from that because it's harder for them to grasp. Well, even if we are to buy that, it still requires teachers largely being equipped and the administrators largely being equipped to actually implement that change for the teachers to understand, and then obviously for the students to understand. The professional development, and why is uniquely beneficial on our side, because it is the least disruptive yet most impactful reform. Firstly, because it does not require rewriting national exams. It also produces immediate results, because a well-trained principal today leads a better school into performing better tomorrow. So for the interest of time, I will just show you comparatively why, compared to two models. Firstly, the implementation speed. Opposition's curriculum takes years to develop, test, and execute. Ours is immediate with impact within months. Secondly, lack of disruption. Why? Because in their model, high changes require teacher retraining, exam rewrites, and structural overhauls. On our side, we get better trained leaders without disrupting the actual working in the classroom. Secondly, in terms of scalability, it's difficult because it requires nationwide coordination. On our side, it is easier because we are able to train administrators who improve the schools themselves, and it's more contextualized, it's more customized for the schools to actually implement, as opposed to a standardized model nationwide. And then lastly, because of historical success, because it failed, it's still failing really, in 25 now, and it was implemented in 2016, that's PEP, showing that curriculum alone does not fix the issue. On our side, it is proven globally, because strong leadership leads to better schools. And it's not just even limited to schools, it's in businesses, it's in governance, and other structures of society. And for these very reasons, we tell you, do not buy what the opposition said, and we are very strong, proud to propose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dekar Diego Nelson, closing the debate from the vantage point of Team UTEC Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I invite you to get on your devices, access the survey, record your stance on the motion now, and then that will also contribute ultimately to the decision as to who triumphs in this debate. I'm going to now turn over to our moderator, who will then field some questions and facilitate the exchange of ideas between yourselves and the experts, the debaters.
All right, thank you so much, Jermaine. Can we get a huge round of applause for our debater? Test. Okay. All right, did we enjoy that presentation? Yes, I know, and I made some notes of some persons who were cheering on the respective teams. I won't load them up. I even witnessed some crossing of the floor. Some people like the leadership, and then they say, okay, but curriculum. Can I see a raise of hands? Hold on, I have word. Okay, so good. Yeah, can I see a raise of hands? Who believes the opposition won? And who believes the... Oh, you're voting still? Put it in the QR code. Yes, I want to see. So when we put up the results, I want to see. But I heard the engagement. It was really good. Some pertinent points coming out of both debate presentations. We even have some things to highlight. I know the PS is here. She's been looking and nodding on critical thinking as a discussion, standardized curriculum versus student-centric curriculum, development of administrators and teachers, quality, the things that came out of their presentations as well, the quality of their arguments, very important, articulation of their points, the delivery, the conviction, critical thinking in order to do those rebuttals. I believe the students demonstrated an exceptional presentation, and I believe they deserve one more round of applause for that. Yes, so remember to input your votes. The judges are deliberating, and we will be hearing the outcome of this in short order. So at this time, I'll invite the Holy Family Primary and Infant School to make a special entertainment presentation at this time while our judges deliberate, and when we get back, we will hear the results of our debate. All right, please make them feel welcome. Our young stars are approaching the platform.
Mic check. gamble for real. Johnny get happy, that's how Johnny feel. Johnny link up with some of him friends and I kick some ball on the football field. Johnny potential star for real. Johnny start saving money when lunch bearing. Then Johnny him gone for the meal. Johnny get bright in a school. Johnny stop crying, start fight in a school. Johnny excited because him try for the best. Cause Johnny no fool. Gambling used to confuse him. Whether him winning or losing. No, Johnny life nice and grooving. I mean him Johnny that's a truth. Oh Johnny. Oh Johnny, Johnny. Oh Johnny, Johnny. Oh Johnny. Oh Johnny, Johnny. Oh Johnny. Oh Johnny, Johnny. Oh Johnny. Oh Johnny, Johnny. You not come gamble?
No, man.
Why?
Come to reach 18 yet. Wake up.
Wait until you're 18.
Okay, let's hear it for our young stars from Holy Family Primary with their piece, Oh Johnny. But Johnny full of style though. You see Johnny moves? Listen, Johnny have to come teach me some dancing when him finish, yes. But thank you for that lovely presentation from the Holy Family Primary and Infant School. So I will check in with our judges. Uncle Jermaine, are we ready? All right, so can we hand the mic over to our adjudicators to find out the results? Has everyone put in their votes? Yeah, that doesn't sound like everybody has. Everybody put in their votes, right? All right, so let's hear the results from our adjudicators.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. Is it morning or afternoon? No. It's morning still, indeed. All right, so I will not be exhaustive, I will not be comprehensive in my assessment of the debate because I'm more interested in hearing from you. So while we crunch the numbers, Madam Moderator, if we could just have one or two more questions fielded from the audience to the teams, because I'm sure that a lot of what they've said have sparked some interest, but we want to hear deeper analysis of the issues or deeper exploration. So if you would, Madam Moderator,
yes,
let's do
no
that.
Problem. All right,
so we will come to you with the results.
Definitely, thank you. So we open the floor again to hear from the audience. So would anybody like to contribute? What was your most memorable point from the debate? And I heard from this side already. Can anybody on this side would like to share? Just raise your hand. I will take the mic to you. Oh, we have some shy people. Okay, we have a lovely gentleman there with the orange tie. Yes, and please introduce yourself, of course. We'd love to know who is here with us today. But yes, what was your most memorable point from today's debate? And rest of the audience, you can think about it. We want to feel some more responses from you. All right?
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I'm Nigel Nelson from Money College. I have a question, not necessarily a comment. In terms of, and it is for the opposition, in terms of reforms of the curriculum, what would you have identified as gaps for this reform? So it's a two-pronged question. So that's the first question. You may want to respond. I'll ask the second question after.
Thank you.
So what we would have said in our speech, right, just to recap, is that when professional development happens first, staff feel as though they're being tasked with fixing the whole world and fixing the whole school. And when you're already in an environment where they're inclined to leave because of the fact they're overburdened, they are now not only more inclined to leave, but more trained and can leave and get better work. So the gaps that exist in a lot of curriculums are actually engagement with students. That's a very big gap. What my partner was just saying to me is that, in many circumstances, you have teachers who are saying, I'm really tired of seeing the same 50 students every day that are sleeping in my class because they were at 7 other classes before this one and they're burnt out. So engagement, I feel, is one gap in most curriculums.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, I think that there are more pressing gaps that you should have identified in your debate. For example, one of the issues that arose from the curriculum was that it did not test critically the students' thinking enough. The curriculum has been moving from Common Entrance to GSAT to PEP, and we have had the RPC, the revised primary curriculum at the primary level, and of course we have the National Standards curriculum now that is being utilized. However, the numbers do not indicate that a mere change of the curriculum is giving us the results that we ought to be seeing. And so, even responding to my own question, I think that gender differentiation in teaching in terms of how the curriculum is designed, I think that is something that needs to be addressed in the curriculum as we have it. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that our boys and girls are taught the same way, standardized? Do you think that we need to differentiate how boys and girls are actually taught?
So I think in regards to gender teaching, the differentiation in how boys and girls learn doesn't begin in the classroom. It begins at home. It begins with the way that boys and girls are parented differently, in that girls are inherently socialized in such a way that they are trained to adhere to those granular instructions and they're more obedient. And boys are parented in such a way that they have the freedom to run about and do whatever. And they're much less inclined and much less psychologically incentivized to co-opt or to abide by systems that have a lot of instructions, because that is directly antithetical with the way that they're socialized at home. So in as much as we can change the way that they're taught in classrooms, the question then is, how do you reform the curriculum in such a way that it balances meeting those educational goals while still addressing the problem that exists, not within the school system, but in the socio-cultural environment that boys exist in, which is that they have too much freedom, so much so that they don't know how to abide by rules.
All right. Thank you.
As well, I'd like to say...
Hold on.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, just urging you to vote the second time around. The numbers are coming in. The numbers are paltry for the end vote. So we need you to vote so that we can get the data and add it to the results. Yes?
So I'd also like to concede.
Hold on, Joshua. What's that? It's not allowing you, Mr. Clark? Oh, please try again. Okay? You may go ahead now, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd also like to concede to the idea, and the literature does prove that boys and girls learn in very different ways, and the education system usually caters more to girls rather than boys, because boys are generally just left to their devices, and girls are really the ones that are reeled in, per se. Girls have a lot of expectations to meet. But outside of that, though, outside of just the cultural aspect, which my partner, our teammate mentioned, I think there's too much a fixation on high-stakes testing. That's to say, students feel a sense of impending doom when they aren't meeting their requirements or they aren't meeting their goals for the classroom. And ultimately, they turn to really unconventional ways of coping, are ways which we are, within the education system, isn't valued and it ought not to be valued. Things like cheating shouldn't be valued. Disengaging, albeit a psychological response to something that gets overburdening. I think we should do more to try to make the workload less, first of all. But I think the fixation on tests and standardized tests also does a lot to reinforce some of the structural inequalities. Because like tests ultimately boil down to like who can study more and who can like regurgitate a lot to pass the exam. And I think there's a fundamental divide between who has access to the resources to make it comfortable for them to be able to do that versus who doesn't. I think a way in which that can be rectified is like moving away from testing and going more so to things that really catalyze an appreciation for learning outside of just, I have to pass this test. I think things like projects are collaborative. Projects are collaborative, and we want our students to be collaborative, right? Projects make you think more critically because you have to work with a group of people with diverse opinions on something, and sometimes you have to prove why your idea is the best. I think teamwork, all of those different things, and other ways that don't look like standardized testing really catalyze a personal and better appreciation for learning outside of just testing.
And to further add on the gender point, I'm also particularly concerned about harms that can obtain when we gender learning, in as much as it's highly probable that gendered learning isn't going to lead to classrooms where you can have that separation of gendered learning within that very same classroom. So you're probably going to have to separate them. And I think because school functions... Time?
Thank you for those responses. All right, did that satisfy your curiosity, sir? Thank you. No? Well, we'll have further discussion outside of this forum, of course, but we did hear some interesting perspectives from our students. Are we ready with the results?
Yes, we are.
All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, Brittany Clark. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, how this works is that we as the judges, we would have scored, and the scores for the teams are as follows. One team ends on 280 points, that's out of 360. To the other team's 281 points.
Wow!
Yes, the margin is close. It is incredibly close. And so I won't tell you who got the judges' vote by 1 point, but I'll also now describe to you how you voted. So for the pre-debate vote, 34 of you voted in favor of the motion, and 10 of you voted against the motion. So 34 of you were in favor of Team UTEC's position that professional development is most instrumental for national development, and 10 of you voted in favor of curriculum reform as being most instrumental. At the end, unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of you coming back to vote the second time around. We have 16 persons voting in favor of Team UTEC's position that professional development is most instrumental, and 9 voting in favor of Team UE, their position. And so, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, the data set is inadequate, and so the ultimate decision rests on our shoulders, as judges. So, the winner of this debate, this inaugural debate for Leadership Day, hosted by the National College for Educational Leadership within the Ministry of Education, Skills and Youth and Information, the winner of this match comes to us from, drum roll. Give me some energy, give me some excitement. Team UTEC proposition. All right, so congratulations to UTEC on winning this one, and a round of applause to Team UE, Mona. The best debater in this match comes to us from the University of the West Indies, Mona, and that speaker, the second speaker, Talicia T. Vassell. Now I understand that there are prizes to be handed out, so I'll turn over again to Madam Brittany Clark. Huh? Okay, we'll hand out the prizes afterwards. But again, congratulations to all the teams in this match. And those of you who are probably wondering, okay, how can I become a part of this revolutionary movement that's going on in Jamaica to inspire young people to communicate more effectively, more confidently, more critical thinking, and so forth? How can you personally benefit? Well, one of the things that we'll be doing as a part of the Debate Pulse initiative is to engage school administrators and teachers across the island to teach them how to use some of the techniques of debating in the curriculum. It's going to be a powerful tool for educational transformation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, and congratulations to our winning debate team and our top debates. I'm going to invite both teams to just shake hands as they exit the platform, but give them another round of applause, please, for their exceptional display. And thank you too to the audience for voting. You would have assisted the judges in making their decision. All right. Thank you. Oh, you can come in front here for the photo op, please. Join us in front for the photo op, yeah. Thank you. Group photo. Yes. Assemble at the front for a group photo, please. And just a gentle reminder again, if you want to find out how you too can be a part of the Jamaica Association for Debate and Empowerment, just speak to any one of our adjudicators there for additional information. So at this time, we're going to be getting into our keynote address. And today, to deliver that special presentation, we have Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chairman of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee. A former Commonwealth scholar, Dr. Stokes is a graduate of the University of Manchester, where he obtained a PhD in international finance. He has an MSc distinction and a BSc first class honors in economics from the University of the West Indies, UAE. He is currently co-founder and CEO of the Qantas Financial Group, a non-traditional investment management business. Before starting Qantas, Dr. Stokes was the Senior Vice President and Head of Insurance and Wealth Management at Scotia Group Jamaica, where he held responsibility for growth and profitability of wealth management, individual life, group life, and pension insurance businesses to support the strategic goals of Scotia Group Jamaica. Dr. Stokes' professional background covers investment management, investment banking, market and credit risk management, derivatives trading, structured products, life insurance, treasury management, and corporate strategy. He has lectured microeconomics, macroeconomics, econometrics, statistics, and game theory to both undergraduate and graduate students at the University of the West Indies. Dr. Stokes is a leading commentator on the Jamaican economy and has been at the center of many private sector-led initiatives to improve macroeconomic performance in Jamaica. He is a director of the Development Bank of Jamaica and was named as chairman of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, the committee tasked with overseeing the transformation of Jamaica's education system. Dr. Stokes is a past vice president of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, and former chairman of its Economic Policy Committee. He is also a past president of the Insurance Association of Jamaica, IAJ. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker for today's Leadership Day event, Dr. Adrian Stokes.
I'm that tall. All right, morning everyone. There's the deck up and running. We're good at the presentation? It's up? Okay, great. I'm not seeing it, but. All right, so good morning, everyone, and let me first say thanks to Mr. Clark and the National College for Educational Leadership for their kind invitation to address you in my capacity as chairman of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, or ETOC for short. Let me welcome the other participant speakers. The Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, is here, so I recognize you and the other specially invited guests. Let me also take the opportunity to wish NCEL all the best, really, hearty congratulations on your third staging of the Leadership Day. A very important endeavor, given the vital importance of leadership as we seek to fundamentally transform education to make our students globally competitive. And in that respect, we should really highlight the great job done by the debaters just now. So in international economics, and certainly when I used to be a lecturer, I used to tell my students that technically it is not countries that compete. It is really firms that compete. And the truth is, when you examine the issue closer, it's not even firms that compete internationally. It's really people. So it's really people that compete on a global scale. And that's why education is so important. Because if you're going to be a winner, certainly if you're going to be effective at trade and competing to move your country forward, you need people who are skilled and, as I indicated, globally competitive. So leadership, equipping our kids, transforming education, all of this is very important. And that's why I'm here to participate in the program today. So my remarks will cover leadership generally, and I will focus on an important issue, an issue of accountability and governance generally across the education sector. But before I do so, it would be remiss of me if I did not say quickly how the transformation effort in education is unfolding. So we report quarterly as ETOC to the Jamaican people. We give an update about how the transformation effort is progressing. And I must say to date, we are on track. 135 initiatives have started. 7 of those initiatives have been formally completed. We have 1 initiative that is lagging, and overall 128 initiatives are on track. And for this year, the goal is really to ramp up some of the critical reforms impacting areas like governance. And I will talk about some of these issues in my comments today. In addition to the reforms from the Patterson Report, a big initiative that is now on the way that the ministry is leading is doing a lot of work to improve CSEC passes in math and English nationally. The passes in math in particular are atrocious, and especially at some schools, we really need to make a conscious effort to fundamentally lift those schools and to improve the math performance in Jamaica. And so a lot is happening there, and hopefully we will see an improvement in this year's CSEC passes in math and English. Now, it is important for us to appreciate that the goal of the transformation process is to build a world-class education system where our kids are globally competitive. One of the global metrics used to assess performance is the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA for short. Now, every 3 years, the OECD conducts PISA to test the critical thinking of 15-year-old kids in math, science, and reading in over 65 countries. The top spots for PISA are dominated by Asian countries, absolutely dominated by Asian countries. I think they account for about 7 of the top 10 places, with Singapore and China being the global powerhouses. Importantly, Singapore is way ahead of the USA and the OECD averages in the 3 critical subject areas. The big question is, what is Singapore doing that the rest of the world can learn from? So this prompted me to take a closer look at Singapore's education system. Here are some quick facts about Singapore. Only one institution in Singapore is authorized to train teachers, the National Institute of Education. This ensures standardization and better quality control of the teaching pool. You don't have a plethora of teaching colleges across Singapore, just one really, really top university that trains teachers in Singapore. Secondly, only students who qualify to enter the country's top universities are accepted in teachers' colleges. There's a cap on the number of students accepted to be teachers each year. And finally, teaching salaries are comparable to other top professions in Singapore. In terms of performance management, the setup in Singapore is somewhat similar to Jamaica, at least in some respects. There is a self-appraisal carried out by each school based on metrics developed by the central ministry. Out of this self-evaluation, each school develops an improvement plan to close gaps identified. Importantly, there is a comprehensive assessment of each school every 5 years. Every 6 years. What is clear is that based on the performance management and school improvement plans, the Singaporean model is not very dissimilar from what we do in Jamaica. If anything, we have formalized it, right? We have introduced, for example, the National Education Inspectorate as a quasi-independent body to evaluate the performance of schools. Of note, the school governance model in Singapore is highly centralized, with the Ministry of Education playing a central role. In Singapore, schools are grouped into geographic clusters, each overseen by a superintendent to provide local support for the ministry's policies and initiatives. The cluster superintendents, who are successful former principals, collaborate with principals in their cluster on how to implement the curriculum and which teaching materials to choose from among the set the ministry approves and strongly encourages teachers to use. The cluster superintendents also facilitate the sharing of resources and best practices between schools in the cluster. Now, as noted, Singapore's governance model is highly centralized and does not rely on consensus for decision making. There are, however, other governance models that are more decentralized than Singapore, but still produce excellent education outcomes. Denmark is one such country. It has a highly decentralized governance model, but still has an education system that is considered world class. If you're keen, you should see where I'm going in a few. Denmark is ranked number 2 by the prestigious University of Pennsylvania in conjunction with the U.S. News and World Report in their global ranking of education systems. In Denmark, the education system is based on a self-governance model. Educational institutions are expected to bear the independent, decentralized responsibility for educational opportunities and development, as well as the pedagogical development. The system places independent boards that have effective accountability for the good management and performance of schools. These boards provide leadership to schools to ensure the national educational objectives are being achieved. The members of the board, as a group, have competencies that will contribute to promoting the institution's current and future activities. Members from outside the institution should, as a group, have experience with educational development, quality control, leadership, finance, experience from the business world. So they have listed a number of competencies that the board members should have. In Denmark, for secondary schools in particular, the majority of the members on the board must come from outside the institution. And let me give you a summary of what obtains. So one member is to be appointed jointly by the local municipality. 2 members are elected by and from the staff members, one of whom has voting rights. 2 members are to be elected by and from among the students, one of whom has voting rights if he or she is over 18. The leader of the institution, the principal, is to act as the secretary for the board and participate in board meetings, though without voting rights. The board takes decisions regarding the institution's educational programs on offer, activities and administration capacity according to recommendations from the heads of the institutions. Other board accountabilities include determining the guidelines for the activities of the institutions, ensuring responsible administration of the institution's funds such that they are used to the greatest possible benefit according to the aims of the institutions. And finally, approval of budgets and financial accountability. What about the powers of the minister in this decentralized model? So in Denmark, the Minister of Education can place an institution under administration to a greater or lesser degree and thereby strip the board of its responsibility or a portion of them. The minister can instruct the authorities and organizations responsible for appointing the board to appoint a new board if the board is deemed ineffective. Additionally, the Minister of Education can place an institution under administration if its activities are deemed to be dangerous. Additionally, the Minister of Education has certain powers that are well laid out but are reserved, and I'm not listing them here in the interest of time. Now, some aspects of Denmark's governance model look very similar to Jamaica, very, very similar. Both of them are decentralized, where power is vested in a board to govern a school. One key difference is that the Danes have put in place safeguards to make the boards as independent as possible from the schools that they are governing. And they have put in place certain powers in the minister as a fail-safe, just in case the board is not working properly. In Jamaica, we have effectively decentralized our school governance system to boards that have the responsibility to hire and performance manage principals and teachers. However, the composition of our boards and who has voting power can produce outcomes that are not in keeping with proper governance. In effect, A government-run school, for example, can have a board that is effectively run by persons from the school, producing the perverse result of persons from the school holding themselves accountable. So as the Danes have shown, a decentralized governance model must still make sense. In other words, proper checks and balances must be in place to ensure the executive leaders of the schools aren't the same persons governing the school. It just doesn't make sense. Does not make sense at all. One of the things I have been doing since taking on the role of ETOC chair is to travel around the country and visit schools that are struggling in the key subject areas of math and English. Now, I do these visits to get a better understanding of the school environment, assess the quality of the leadership and the quality of the board, and effectively to get a sense of whether or not the school, i.e. the board and the senior leaders at the school, have a plan to get the school back on track. Now, from my observations, we have some high quality people in our education system, for sure. However, they lack support in key areas that are critical to the success of the children. We also have some extremely weak persons who are, quite frankly, a bad fit for the job that they're doing. So we need to get to a point where the system is largely rules-based. Performance management is clear, and there is a clear way of celebrating and rewarding our high achievers, while holding accountable those who are not reaching the requisite standard. Now, some key observations as I move to close. Singapore's governance model is highly centralized. The Ministry of Education calls the shots. In Denmark, the governance model is at the other end of the spectrum, highly decentralized. So 2 key observations so far. 1, while models of governance and institutions are important, nothing beats having your best and brightest people making the most important decisions. 2nd, checks and balances are important to have an accountability framework that produces the desired results. Like Singapore did, Jamaica needs to build its national development plans on a robust education sector that produces truly world-class graduates. I know successive governments have noted the importance of education to the country's future. But unlike Singapore, we have failed in terms of implementing the necessary measures to move from talk to substance. The Patterson report highlights some key recommendations labeled as priority recommendations that are in line with fundamentally changing educational outcomes in Jamaica. For example, the report calls for an increase in the matriculation requirement for students entering teacher training institutions. We need to ensure we are recruiting our best people to be teachers. Full stop. It is really too easy to become a teacher in Jamaica. 2nd, in addition, we must pay our high quality people better when they perform. The incentive programs for high performers in the education system needs to be attractive so that a teacher who performs can earn a comparable income to other key professions in the economy. Note, I am talking about paying aggressively for performance, not merely increasing salaries without any linkage to performance. And this is a key point, so I really want to emphasize it. As a country, we need to elevate the teaching profession in terms of stature. A key part of this is to ramp up reward and recognition. But this must be done on a merit basis. It can't be collective where everyone gets rewarded irrespective of performance. It just does not make any sense. The other key observation from our work so far is that structurally, Jamaica's education system is actually well organized. We have some great institutions, and the PS knows that every time I learn about an institution, I was like, my goodness, this is so fantastic. The mandate is well defined, it's logical. So for example, like NCEL, right? We have the National Parent Support Commission. These are well defined mandates and are logical. So we're not short of agencies or institutions to solve key problems in our education sector. The main issue I find is that some of these agencies are not properly resourced, or they suffer from accountability challenges with poorly defined success measures. The accountability issue can be resolved by implementing recommendations in the Patterson report. As I argued earlier, the current school board selection framework does not work. We need to improve the quality of our boards by fundamentally changing how persons are nominated. This is ongoing. We will use the next turnover cycle for boards to begin to recruit persons who have the competencies, the skills that are aligned with the needs of schools. How boards make decisions will also need to change. We can't have a situation where a school is effectively governing itself. Another key insight is that the ministry, central ministry, needs to establish performance indicators that are monitored on a high-frequency basis to ensure it can act in a proactive way to solve key problems in schools before they develop into full-blown crises. In closing, work has begun in a number of important areas as we push to transform education in Jamaica. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We can learn from countries that are excelling in education, like Singapore, like Denmark. To my mind, one of the keys to the long-term success of education is to get more of our best and brightest people into education at all levels, not just teaching, but even in administration. This will take a policy decision by the government to create an incentive framework that rewards high performers at a level that is commensurate with other important jobs in the country, while being able to hold accountable those who are simply not performing. And on this note, let me again wish the NCEL all the best in your Leadership Day activities. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Stokes. Can we give him another round of applause for his keynote address? Yes, and he highlighted some pertinent issues that need to be addressed, as well as the work of the ministry in his e-talk, or rather under his e-talk oversight. So thank you so much. And based on his profile, you can see that he's a leader in his own right. So only fitting to have him as our keynote speaker for today. All right, so we have some special products and initiatives to unveil. These are the leadership learning products and initiatives for the NCEL team, and I'll invite our permanent secretary at this time to join us as we unveil the respective programs. So I will read them as they are unveiled to us, and P.S. we invite you to join us on stage at this time for this special presentation. All right. Okay, so it will be. All right. So I want everybody to be very excited when we unveil, right? So don't just sit down and stare at the banner. Please to make some noise once we unveil the program. All right. After 3, 1, 2, 3. Woo! All right. So this is the Leadership Footprints program. Leadership Footprints takes a grassroots approach to leadership development and transformation. This initiative seeks to engage critical stakeholders in matters impacting the success of schools and the education sector from a leadership perspective. Leadership Footprint is designed to create a platform where all stakeholders, regardless of geographical location in Jamaica, are provided with an opportunity to be engaged in leadership discourses and strategies to support school improvement. So that was the Leadership Footprints initiative. Ready for the next one? After 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. This one is the Leadership in Action, a practical guide to transform in schools. This is to improve student and school outcomes, and it requires successfully planned and sustained interventions, and for school and system leaders to go beyond discussions. The Leadership in Action serves as a practical guide to assist school leaders to effectively transform their schools into high-performing, inclusive, physically and emotionally safe environments where critical stakeholders thrive. This workbook combines frameworks and templates to lead and manage organizational change, design leadership interventions that are contextually relevant, measure impact, and sustain effective practices in schools. Ready for the next one? I think I'm blocking. Hold on. Ready? Ready? All right. So this one is Leadership 360. All right. So for Leadership 360, it says transformation of the education sector requires a 360-degree approach to leadership, where leadership is valued, respected, and enacted at all levels and in all spaces. The Leadership 360 initiative is therefore designed to provide a holistic view of education transformation and to equip pre- and in-service educational leaders with the knowledge and tools needed to effectively exercise greater levels of leadership for a better society. This initiative focuses on system and school leadership, community engagement and partnerships, and national development. All right, time to count down for the next one. 3, 2, 1. Yes. This one is the Introduction to School and System Leadership. All right, so school improvement requires an inclusive approach to leadership, creating an environment where leadership is distributed and teacher leaders go beyond the leadership of the classroom in support of overarching vision of school success. Importantly, neophyte teachers must be engaged in leadership discourses and reflective practices to position themselves to align themselves within varying school contexts, while responding to the dynamics of an evolving education system. And finally, we'll be unveiling the next one. 3, 2, 1. Financial leadership and management in schools. Very, very important. Yes. Yes. So on an annual basis, significant funds are allocated to and invested in education to be managed at the local level of schools. In many schools in Jamaica, in lieu of a bursar, many administrators, senior teachers, and teachers with special responsibilities who are subject matter experts assume financial management responsibilities without the requisite skills and knowledge. To better assist the school administrators and educators in the execution of their fiduciary responsibilities, designed as an asynchronous learning product, the Financial Leadership and Management in Schools FLMS course aims to 1. Expose participants to critical financial leadership and management principles, 2. Equip participants with the knowledge and the skills to undertake effective financial leadership and management in schools, and 3. Promote greater levels of financial accountability in schools. So let's give NCEL a major round of applause for the launch of these products and services. All right, thank you so much, PS, and thank you, Mr. Clark. All right, so earlier we had the heated debate competition, so we're going to get into those awards shortly. But just before we do that, I'd like to do a special acknowledgement of our partner for today. And for this partnership segment, I'll invite Mr. Andrew Lee, the CEO of eLearning Jamaica, to join us on the platform. Yes. And I believe, Mr. Clark, will you be assisting me with this special presentation? Yes, all right, thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. P.S. Dr. Stoke, congratulations on the work that you're doing in helping with the transformation of education in Jamaica. At eLearning that I represent, our job is to ensure that the technology that is required for our teachers, for our students to engage appropriately with technology. We know that technology is a major part of educational transformation. And so our job is really to provide our schools with these devices. For NCEL, that we know is doing an excellent job in relation to developing our leaders, we're happy to support them. And today we're presenting 20 devices that will help in the whole training program that NCEL is undertaking. So we hope that these devices will help in the transformation process and will help in overall improvement of our educational outcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our partners from eLearning. All right, so again, I mentioned that we will be doing those special presentations. And do we have the debaters here from UTEC's team? Inviting them to join us. They're coming back. All right, so yes, can give them a round of applause as they make their way back. We'll have a special presentation to them from Iconic Travel Group. Yes, they're making their way in. Okay, no problem. All right, so while we await the arrival of the debaters, I will hand over at this time to our permanent secretary from the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, Dr. Kassan Troop, to deliver some remarks.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's afternoon. It's indeed my pleasure to be here this afternoon and to share in this momentous occasion. I really want to thank Dr. Stokes for bringing you up to speed with the work that we're doing on the transformation. He's a hard taskmaster. I'm saying it right in front of him. Colleagues, he's not giving up. He's vested. And I can tell you, I have to give an account every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. Every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. So transformation is not a report on a shelf. It's an active part of our work at the Ministry of Education. It's actually the work. And sometimes you will hear people say in the media, it's not happening. I want you to rubbish that. It is happening, and today is a reflection of that. Thanks to NCEL, they have embraced the work, and that is why you see these new programs as a reflection of what the system needs for transformation. So, Dr. Stokes, I want to publicly recognize your support. He's my champion. I get the licks, but he also empowers us because he's pushing us to think beyond the ordinary. This is not ordinary times, and so we need extraordinary strategies to make it work. And part of that is the quality of leadership. Colleagues, everything rises and falls on leadership. We heard the debate. It was hard to decide, but eventually we gave way to leadership. And if you look at this one that talks about personal agency, when we talk about system leadership, we have a tendency to say the ministry didn't and the ministry didn't. I want to remind us in this room that we are the ministry. The ministry is not a building at Hero Circle. The ministry is about the people. And our guest speaker spoke to it a while ago. We talk about the countries competing and companies competing, and he went right back down to what? People. We cannot continue to sit by and to point a finger. We have to ask the question as leaders, how am I transforming? What are you doing in your individual space to make that big difference in the children's lives, in the staff that you lead? You heard the debate. How are your teachers feeling? That's personal agency. When we employ you as the leader, we employ you because we saw something in you. You brought something to the table in that competition. But when you go into the school space, you forget that and you say it's the ministry. No, you are in that school to lead. You are in that school to transform. And you have to do so within the context of the law as well. So you're not a rogue. You're not on your own. We are a team. We are a team and we work together. So when the ministry says this is the way, don't say my board didn't say so. Because the board's job is to implement the policies of the ministry, not your personal policy. Not because you came up with it and the parents sign it and the teacher sign it makes it right if it breaches the national policy. And I'm using this opportunity to make the point that's what the team does. You don't go off and do your own. You are a part of the team. And we have to support the plan of development. And that's why we are investing in leadership. So colleagues, we need you to understand your role. The tagline says, for a brighter tomorrow. And then the trend says what? Transforming what? Education for national development. You have to see your role in that. Education is not just what we do daily. It is for a purpose. You are called as a leader for such a time like this to ensure that our country, Jamaica, can stand. How is your system serving the goals of this country? That is why the tagline says that, that transformation for national development, that wasn't designed by us at the ministry. It was the young people of this country who came up with that. Because they wanted us to understand the bigger picture. This is not just about passing 5 CXCs. It connects to something bigger. So when you operate your program, you are building the human capital for this country, for the economic and social transformation of this country. You have to make the connection. When you lock out the student, it is not economic transformation. When you're fighting at the gate with the long skirt, it is not economic transformation. And the young people said it right here. We major in the minor. Colleagues, leadership has to be different and contextual. And that's why Dr. Stokes spoke to the fact that there is decentralization, because we recognize that there are differences right across this country. And so the decentralization is to support that. Your context vary. And we want to recognize that and give you agency, but not for you to go rogue. For you to support the plan of national development. So colleagues, I can't say it any better than to thank you for what you do and to ask you to reposition why you do what you do. I'm calling upon your personal agency. Do not get into this rhetoric of a blame game. Ask yourself the question, how am I transforming? Too often I hear this scenario. We're not seeing the transformation. We're not feeling the transformation. Now, if you say that and you're a principal, Mr. Seaside, I see you and you are transformational. Yes, he's one of my good principals. I have to recognize him. He doesn't get into the rhetoric of not nagwan. He gets into what needs to be done in his small corner, aligned to the policies, and he gets it done. That's the job, colleagues. So if you are not seeing the transformation, you are telling Dr. Stokes and myself that you are not transforming. Because transformation happens in our schools. Transformation happens where? So I'm going to encourage you, get the report and align your plans to the 7 pillars of change. And then you're going to start to tell the story of how you are trending. That's the job. How are you trending? That's the job, colleagues. So, Encel, thank you for this conversation. And I like the charge. It's not time for conversation, it's time for action, because the children of this country, they are depending on us. We are the persons called for such a time like this. And it's a team. So no longer it is the ministry now do nothing. And I must make the point again profoundly. I have over 40,000 persons employed in the sector. 99% of the sector is outside of the central ministry. The school enterprise is the biggest part of it, and you are outside of the central ministry, decentralized, with agency, with legislation, with power, with purpose. I only have 1,500 at the central ministry. So my 25,000 teachers are out there. My 1,010 principals, they are out there. My 14,000 support staff, they are out there. So where is the ministry? It's decentralized. So debunk the myth that the central ministry now do nothing. We have to do our part. I try every single day, and I try to represent you well. And you send me my little encouragement from time to time. And then you tell me, Missy, now go on too good, my school won't fix up. And I say, all right, I'm coming, and I have a responsibility for that, and I take it seriously. We'll get there. But you have to change the rhetoric with us. The team is in the field. And so we are depending on you. Colleagues, leadership matters. Everything rises and falls on, and you're a leader in your own right. Bring your agency to the table and excel. God bless you.
Thank you so much, PS, for that powerful address. We just ask that you kindly accept a token of our appreciation for your presence and for your message. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Troop, and I'll invite Dr. Stokes as well to receive a token of our appreciation for your keynote address for today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, and our debaters are ready? Okay, and this presentation to our debaters comes from Ms. Kasika Daly, CEO of the Iconic Travel Group. And I'll invite All right, so I'll invite the winning team, UTEC, or a representative, to join us to receive this token. Yes, all of you can come up, yes. And again, the mood for the debate, whether professional development for school administrators is more important than curriculum reform in achieving national development goals. And of course, our winning team says that yes, professional development is more important. They walk away with a token courtesy of Iconic Travel Group. Congratulations. Yes, give them a winning round of applause, please. Yes, remember your votes also helped to influence the outcome of today. Congratulations to our winners. All right, so I'll invite the individual debaters as well. Nogomo Nantambu Johnson. Yes. It's a very interesting name you have there. I love it. Yes, you can pose for a photo up there. Right there, yes. And Mrs. Camille Michael Patterson will make this special presentation. And these lovely plaques are by MK Sports and Trophies. Yes, a lovely keepsake there for their outcome. We also have a plaque for the Cardiago Nelson. My apologies if I'm massacring the names. Yes, congratulations. All right, our next presentation. May I see the name? Okay. All right, so this one goes to, remind me of your name. Sharissa. So we'll do Sharissa's presentation next. Yes, and Sharissa came out with a strong opening argument. Yes, to set the tone for her team's success. Congratulations, Sharissa. All right, so we invite the representatives now from the UE team, and we begin with Kalicia Vassel, who of course was our top debater as well. Yes. And Ms. Vassel was quick with the rebuttals as well. She had points on top of points. So congratulations to you. And tough question. Yes, she took on the tough questions for the team. All right, up next we have Joshua Atkins. Yes. Congratulations. Yes, well done, well done. And of course, Matthew White, who closed out the arguments for the UE team. Matthew, oh, he stepped out. All right, so we'll have Joshua collect on his behalf. You have two names today, Joshua. All right, so this one is for our top debater now. Oh. Okay. All right, so this presentation is courtesy of Grace Kennedy, and of course, this goes to our adjudicator. So I'll invite Jermaine Barrett or his. Who is here? Oh, they're judging now. Okay, so another committee. Oh, they're booked and busy today. All right, so we'll have a representative from both teams receive this on their behalf. So I'll have one from UTEC, one from UE. Yes, a lovely package from Grace. So look like you can make a nice dinner later, man. As we say, carry on a boat. All right, congratulations to all our awardees, and thank you to the team for their participation. Both teams prepared very well. The students delivered exceptional points, and of course, even though one came out on top, I believe both matters are important: curriculum development and professional development. So very, very pertinent topic that we have. So give them another round of applause, please. Yes. All right, so we move now to the final item of this morning's segment, and it will be our panel discussion under the theme Leadership Empowerment, with emphasis on the men. I'm now going to introduce our moderator who will take over, my dear colleague and friend, Mr. Javon Keys. Javon Keys is currently the Corporate Communications Manager at Sagicor Group Jamaica. He served as the only business reporter / producer and presenter for television and Radio Jamaica from June 2021 to October 2024. During more than 5 years with the RJR Gleaner Communications Group, he coordinated and executed coverage for the leading radio and television business news packages in Jamaica, the Business Day, and the Financial Week during TVJ's primetime news. For Radio Jamaica, he produced the Financial Report and the Business Roundup. And outside of his core duties, Javon produced and hosted the business discussion program, The Exchange. He also served as a producer for the COVID-19 Town Hall series, the 2020 Elections Nightly Show, Decision 2020, All Angles, among other programs. In 2020, Javon received the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence in Journalism, and in addition to his more than 8 years' experience in broadcast media, he positioned himself as event host, working with a wide range of clients in multiple industries to execute their programs seamlessly. Javon also works in sports as one of the handful of track and field announcers across the island. He has been one of the voices for numerous track and field meets on public address, radio, and live stream, including ISA Boys and Girls Championships, National Carifta Trials, Carifta Games Swimming, and the Gibson Relays. Outside of communication, Javon has served in several leadership and voluntary capacities, including youth representative on the National Agenda 2030 SDGs Oversight Committee, and as a youth parliamentarian. Javon left St. Jago High as head boy in 2017, and in the same year, he received the Governor General's Achievement Award for Excellence in Leadership and Academics. A graduate of the Caribbean School of Media and Communication, Caramac, on the UWI campus in 2017, he received the Jamaica Government Exhibition Scholarship to pursue his studies in integrated marketing communication. Javon also holds a diploma in Spanish from the Venezuelan Institute for Culture and Cooperation. And I also add that he's my friend, so I'm very happy to welcome him to the platform at this time to moderate our panel discussion.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. No, man, after all of that fulfilling, exciting discussion and debate this morning, and all of the insightful conversations being had, we have to do better than that. Good afternoon. Thank you so much to my Bunononos friend, Brittany Clark, and my fellow Prime Minister's Youth Awardee. Yes, we got the Prime Minister's Youth Award the same year for setting the pace throughout the morning into afternoon. Now, this afternoon's panel discussion is focused on empowerment with the emphasis on the MEN. And that's very deliberate because we know for certain, looking in this room alone, you realize that the majority of persons in this room are women. And in the education system, most of our teachers are, which means that for young men in the system, there are not necessarily many examples for them to emulate looking at how to operate as young men. And the reality is that in a context where we have about 47% of our households being single-parent households, headed by women, it means that we have a situation where our young men may not necessarily have the kinds of role models that they need to be able to emulate. I mean, I can speak for myself. I went to Davis Primary School. I always talk about St. Jago and Davis Primary. And I only had one male teacher for my entire period at Davis Primary School. Now, that role model, I mean, I also tell people the story that I grew up in a single-parent household headed by my mother, Miss Claudette Thomas, big her up. But the reality is, you need strong men, strong male role models in the education system. So our discussion this afternoon is focused on mentorship, networking, mentorship, empowerment, and networking, and we're focusing on men. And my panelists are experienced educators with varying experiences throughout the system. And it is my pleasure to welcome first Dr. Christopher Clark, who is currently the principal of the Midland Bible Institute, a small liberal arts institution in Maypen, Clarendon. And prior to this, he served as principal at Shortwood Teachers College for a total of 10 years. There's I hear some Shortwood people in the room, so you can celebrate. And one of the unique things about his tenure is that he saw the single largest number of males entering and graduating from the college, with most of them still teaching today. Now, for his work in education, Dr. Clark has received the Prime Minister's Medal of Appreciation, and he has successfully mentored and discipled several young men who are today emulating his examples. And also on this panel, Dr. Darian Henry. Still want to say my media colleague, but he's definitely taken of leading educational change in Jamaica, and he is a respected educational leader and communication strategist. And as principal of the Montego Bay Community College, he consistently drives innovation and transformational leadership excellence in post-secondary education. Now, his previous principalship at Cumberland High School transformed the school's operations and student performance, gaining national prominence. And of course, many people talk about that legacy at Cumberland High School. If you don't know, you need to know. major transformation that's taken place there. Let me also welcome Sergeant Novar Bell, and he